You can't even handle something as simple as this. What a useless woman. Why did Sean marry someone like you? My mother-in-law, Margaret, constantly finds reasons to pick on me. She wasn't like this before. Feeling like I couldn't take it anymore, I decided to confide in my husband, Sean, who was living away for work. It's probably your fault, isn't it? If Mom's upset, you must have done something wrong. He didn't defend me at all. Both of them seemed to grow colder toward me after my dad passed away, and the topic of inheritance came up. One day, however, Sean returned home unexpectedly from his work assignment. It happened to be my birthday. Surprise! Happy birthday, Melissa. Happy birthday. It had been so long since they'd treated me kindly. If only they could be this nice every day. I was in such a good mood, but I was also a bit tired, so I stretched out on the couch. I'm starting to feel sleepy. Sean gently draped a blanket over me as I dozed off on the sofa. After a while, thinking I was asleep, Sean turned to Margaret and said, "Looks like she's asleep." Clueless, as always. It's hilarious, but I wasn't asleep. Believing I was completely out, Sean began whispering something suspicious to Margaret. Pretending to sleep, I listened to their conversation, and then I discovered they were hatching an unbelievable plan. Terrified, I forced myself to keep pretending to be asleep. Melissa, work at the local government office. Sean and I met at a party, hit it off, and got married. Both Margaret and Sean encouraged me to keep my job. The two say, "You've got such a respectable career as a public servant. It would be a waste to quit." Yay, it's a stable job. The neighbors love bragging that Sean's wife works for the government. If you quit, what will I have to boast about? Besides, more income is always better, right? They said whatever they pleased. Well, but, honestly, I had planned to scale back my work after marriage in hopes of having kids. However, when I brought up children, Sean said, "I'm not really interested in having kids." Oh, I see. With that, I had no choice but to continue working. Then, 6 months into our marriage, Sean was transferred to another city for work. I've been assigned to a new location far from here. We'll have to move. What, move? That's so sudden. Then I'll transfer and come with you. I intended to follow him to his new workplace. But Sean replied, "What? Melissa, you can't come with me. What about your job?" Well, I could switch to part-time or explore other options. Even so, Sean wouldn't allow it. "You quitting your job is out of the question. It'd be such a waste. Besides, I've already arranged to share an apartment with a coworker. There's no room for you there." And with that, he shut me down. So Sean went ahead and prepared for his move on his own. At the same time, Margaret moved into our house to take his place. "What? Margaret is moving into this house. Nice to meet you. I'll be staying with you from now on." I was surprised because I hadn't heard anything about Margaret moving in. While I stood there in shock, Sean said to her, "Welcome, Mom. Stay as long as you'd like." He accepted her without consulting me at all. Margaret, moving in with us all of a sudden, what happened? I asked Margaret. "James was cheating on me. I just can't stand to see him anymore." "James? That serious, responsible James was cheating?" I was genuinely shocked by her words. Yes, I couldn't bear it anymore. So I decided to stay here to avoid seeing him. Margaret explained that she separated from my father-in-law, James, because of his infidelity. However, I couldn't imagine the serious and composed James committing such an act. What could have happened for him to cheat? Some time passed after Margaret moved in with us, and one day I ran into James in town. "Well, if it isn't Melissa, how have you been?" He greeted me from across the street. "Oh, James. It's been a while." James had always been a reasonable and kind person. Thinking he might be worried about Margaret, I gave him a casual update. "Margaret is enjoying her time at our place." "I see. I hope she's not giving you any trouble, Melissa." As the conversation flowed, I decided to bring up the infidelity issue subtly. His reaction was the most surprising part of the discussion. James said in surprise, "Excuse me, me cheating?" Margaret said that. From his shocked response, it seemed unlikely that James had done anything of the sort. "Yes, Margaret mentioned it." Hearing my answer, James let out a wry laugh and said, "That's quite different from what I was told. Why would she tell such a lie?" Apparently, James had heard a different story about their separation. Margaret said Sean had moved out, and she thought Melissa might feel lonely living alone, so she wanted to stay with her. That's the explanation Margaret gave him. What could Margaret possibly be thinking? To lie just to move in with Melissa? James tilted his head in confusion. Before parting, James told me, "I don't know what Margaret is up to, but if you ever need help, let me know." James was a lawyer. A few months later, my dad fell critically ill. When I received the call, Sean took time off work and rushed back home with me. My dad had been a wealthy man. Unfortunately, his condition worsened, and he passed away. My mom had passed away many years earlier. With my dad's passing, the family gathered to discuss inheritance. Finally, all the proceedings were completed. I'm back. What a long day. I returned home, exhausted after the funeral and legal arrangements. Sean wasted no time and asked, "So, Melissa, how much did you inherit?" Sean asked about the inheritance amount, so I answered, "I inherited a quarter of the estate." As soon as I said that, Sean's expression changed. "What, a quarter? Why so little? Where did the rest go?" He suddenly turned sour. "That little. It was divided among everyone, so it can't be helped." "Divided? You didn't inherit the whole estate yourself?" "No, I shared it with my siblings." Hearing that, Sean grew angry. "Siblings? But for the inheritance to be so small, I don't even understand why I bothered coming back." Apparently, Sean assumed that since Mom wasn't around, I would inherit everything. But in reality, I have 4 brothers. Since I've been distant from them, Sean didn't know about my brothers. Even so, why are you so obsessed with my dad's inheritance and meddling? It's insensitive, especially so soon after the funeral. Still grieving, I was furious. At my words, Sean fell silent. But since that day, Margaret started harassing me. "Really, how can you be so incapable? Why did Sean marry such a useless woman?" Margaret kept picking on me, leaving me at a loss. Why is Margaret acting like this? She wasn't like this before. If this keeps up, I don't think I can handle it. I confided in Sean, who was away, but he didn't support me. After hearing my story, Sean retorted, "It's probably your fault, isn't it? You must have upset Mom." He didn't defend me at all. They have been so cold ever since the inheritance discussion. Then one day, Sean surprised me by coming home unexpectedly. When I saw him at the door, I was startled. "Oh, Sean. What are you doing here?" "Melissa, I'm back." Surprised. It happened to be my birthday that day. Surprise. "Happy birthday, Melissa. Happy birthday." With those words, Sean and Margaret cheerfully celebrated my birthday. It had been a long time since they'd been so kind to me. If only they were this nice every day. I was in such a good mood, but feeling a bit tired, I pretended to be drunk and sprawled on the sofa. "I'm starting to feel sleepy." Seeing that, Sean laughed and said, "Hey, you'll catch a cold if you sleep there." He gently covered me with a blanket. After a while, Sean checked on me and said to Margaret, "Looks like she has fallen asleep." But I wasn't asleep. Thinking I was completely out, Sean started speaking quietly with Margaret. I pretended to sleep and listened to their conversation. That's when I discovered their unbelievable plan. This can't be. What are they? I have to contact James immediately. Desperate, I continued to fake sleep while sending a message to James. About 10 minutes later, their conversation ended. They seemed to be looking down at me, sleeping so soundly without a clue, completely oblivious. With those words, they laughed together. I continued pretending to sleep, trembling with fear. The next morning, Margaret was in the kitchen, as if nothing had happened. I glanced over to see what she was making. It seemed like she was cooking beef stew. "Good morning, Melissa." Margaret noticed me and greeted me with a smile. Her mood was eerily cheerful. Though her unusual cheerfulness caught my attention, I kept my composure and greeted her back. "Good morning, Margaret. Are you making beef stew?" When I asked, Margaret replied with a beaming smile. "Yes, I am. James loves it, so I thought I'd make it for him. But the recipe is a family secret, so I can't let you see how it's done." She continued cooking as she spoke. It seemed like she hadn't noticed that I pretended to sleep last night and overheard their conversation, which was a relief. Margaret had mentioned leaving the in-laws' house because of James' affair, but was she planning to go back? "Did you and James make up?" I asked Margaret. "No, not yet." She shook her head as she answered. "But, you know, he's just a man, and I guess having a lapse in judgment once or twice in life isn't entirely unforgivable. So I've decided to reconcile with him." Margaret revealed that she was ready to forgive James' affair. I see. James had told me the affair was a lie, but it was clear that Margaret was making beef stew to give to him. It also struck me as odd how she insisted on keeping the recipe a secret. Something about Margaret felt off, but it was time for me to head to work, so I told her I'd be leaving. "Well, I'm heading to work now." "All right. Take care at work." Margaret sent me off with a wave. As I left the house, I thought about the situation. Last night, while pretending to sleep, I overheard Margaret and Sean discussing a disturbing plan. I realized it was dangerous to do nothing. This is suspicious. I'm really worried about James. Thinking this, I stepped outside and secretly called my office. "I'm sorry, but I'm not feeling well today and need to take the day off." Unable to shake my concern about Margaret, I decided to call in sick and keep an eye on her. For the first time in my life, I lied to take a day off work, but this time I had no choice. Despite feeling guilty about the lie, I refocused and quietly returned home to observe Margaret. "It's done." It seemed like the food was ready. Margaret's expression as she looked at the completed dish was unsettling, with a strange smile on her face. "It looks like the food's ready. Is she planning to leave soon?" "She's starting to get ready." Margaret packed the dish into a plastic container and began preparing to leave the house. After a while, I saw her appear at the front door. Oh, Margaret just stepped out. Time to start tailing her. I followed Margaret, who was carrying the dish, in a cab to the in-laws' house. She seemed entirely unaware that someone was following her. All right, let's keep tailing them. It's clear they're heading toward James' place." Muttering to myself, I continued following Margaret without being noticed. "Wait, who's that?" From a distance, I watched as an unexpected figure appeared. "What? Is that Sean?" Why, to my surprise, Margaret had joined up with Sean along the way. Sean looked at Margaret and exchanged a sly grin. "Mom, are you ready?" "All set. Look, I worked hard on this all morning," Margaret said, showing Sean a container filled with beef stew. Sean nodded and said, "Perfect. All right, let's head to Dad's place. The two of them set off together toward the in-laws' house. Sean said he had work and left early this morning. Why is he here now? And why is he meeting up with Margaret? I couldn't help but wonder as I kept following them. Eventually, they arrived at the in-laws' house. Okay, let's stick to the plan. Got it. Leave it to me. With that, they called out to James, who was presumably inside. James, we're back. Dad, are you there? The two looked around the house, eventually spotting James in the backyard. Dad, we're back. What's going on with you two? James looked puzzled as he saw them. Sean, aren't you supposed to be at work? It's rare for you to drop by at this hour. Well, it's a long story, but I got the day off today. Sean stammered, offering a poor excuse. By the way, are you hungry? I made your favorite beef stew. Please, have some. Margaret invited James to eat. She handed him the plastic container she had brought. How does it look? Delicious, right? Oh, this looks fantastic. Margaret, it's been ages since you cooked for me. What's the occasion? James beamed with a wide smile as he looked at the stew. You're not plotting something, are you? Just so you know, I don't have any money. James joked. To this, Margaret replied, Come on, can't I do something nice for you? I worked hard all morning to make this special beef stew just for you. As she spoke, Margaret flashed a sly smile. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Oblivious to Margaret's expression, James grabbed a plate and spoon. Then he looked at Sean and said, All right, Sean, you try it first. He offered the stew Margaret had made to Sean. What, me? Sean's face tightened at the suggestion. Wait, why Sean should eat it? Margaret's expression mirrored his surprise. No, this is for Dad. Mom made it for him, not me. For some reason, Sean refused to eat the beef stew. Exactly. I made it for you. Margaret insisted passionately from the side. But James stood his ground. Come on, don't say that. Just go ahead and eat first. Doesn't this beef stew look delicious? What's the matter? Let's all eat together, said. Sean desperately tried to come up with an excuse. I'm not really hungry. So, Dad, you can eat it all. Don't say that. Just have one bite. Surely you can manage that much, right? Margaret worked hard to make this. Neither of them was willing to back down. Eat it. No, I won't. The argument went back and forth. You're being too pushy. Margaret, finally reaching her breaking point, said, Just eat it already without saying anything. She grabbed the plate and tried to force the beef stew into James' mouth. Hey, what are you doing? Stop it. James held Margaret back. Shut up. Just eat it already. I told you, I worked hard on this since this morning. But Margaret couldn't overpower James and gave up on forcing him to eat. Why won't you eat it? Margaret, upset and losing her composure, was met with James' calm question. Why are you so desperate to make me eat this? And why won't Sean take a single bite either? They both fell silent at the question. Both of you show up here at this hour, insist I eat, and even try to force feed me. What exactly are you two up to? They had no answers, and silence hung in the air. Breaking the quiet, James said, By the way, Sean, Margaret, I have something important to tell you. Let's address it before we eat. With that, James pulled out his smartphone. He played a recording of last night's conversation. Crystal clear, the recording played Sean and Margaret whispering to each other. That voice and that conversation. Last night's. Realizing what it was, Sean panicked. The recording revealed a plan where Sean and Margaret intended to eliminate James, claim his inheritance, and pin the blame on me, who knew nothing. Damn it. Our conversation was recorded. You knew about our plan. That's why you refused to eat the stew. Margaret muttered regretfully. You really thought I wouldn't find out, James thundered, making them freeze in place. Watching from outside, I waited for the right moment. Looks like it's time. As James began confronting them, I entered the house to back him up. Both of you, your plan has failed. Give it up. What, Melissa? The two stared at me in shock. Why is Melissa here? Didn't she leave for work? Why are you here? In truth, James had been aware of their plot since last night. While pretending to be asleep, I secretly used my smartphone to contact James. Sean, Margaret, your entire plan has been exposed, I declared to them. I heard your entire conversation, and James knows your scheme too. Saying this, I glared at them. What? That's cheating. You figured it out and didn't say anything. Sean insulted me. Have you been testing us? However, I responded without backing down. By the way, Sean, why are you here? What about your job? I deliberately asked Sean. Well, that's. Sean couldn't say a word and fell silent. In fact, I already knew the reason. Should I say it for you? You've been lying about going to work, haven't you? You've been lying all along. It turned out that Sean's supposed transfer was a lie. He had quit his job right after we got married and had been living off Margaret's Social Security and part-time income. That's probably why he was so against me quitting my job. Sean looked at me with a bored expression. So you knew everything? You're such a sneaky person, pretending not to know. Realizing his lie had been uncovered, Sean became defiant. Yeah, I quit my job a long time ago. I figured once your dad passed away, I'd get all the inheritance. He began confessing his reasons for quitting work. However, when he found out the inheritance was only a quarter, his plans went awry, and he panicked. What? Only a quarter of the inheritance? That's way less than I calculated. This makes life much harder. In his desperation, he quickly came up with this latest scheme. James, who had been silently listening, spoke up to Sean. Even if Melissa inherited everything, it wouldn't be yours. Hearing that, Sean was dumbfounded. What? Is that true? Depending on someone else's family inheritance. You're always so selfish. James scolded Sean harshly. In fact, the reason Margaret separated from James was that he had strongly criticized her for spoiling Sean too much. That day, too, James had reprimanded the lazy Sean, but Margaret came to his defense. Why are you being so harsh on Sean again? Don't you feel sorry for him? However, James turned his frustration toward Margaret, who was trying to protect Sean. Margaret, if you keep spoiling Sean like that, it won't do him any good. Even if he's your son, you have to correct his mistakes. What? You're always like this. If you impose such strict standards every day, Sean will suffocate. Margaret became angry at James's demand to stop spoiling Sean, and she stormed out of the in-laws' house, leading to their separation. However, James hadn't said anything wrong. I don't think James was wrong. I chuckled bitterly upon hearing the real reason behind Margaret's separation. How did Sean become such a selfish and spineless person? Even James hadn't initially known that Sean had quit his job. You quit your job and depended on someone else's money. How far have you fallen? And now this. James let out a deep sigh at his son's incompetence. By the way, Sean, about you pretending to be on a solo assignment and renting that apartment. Isn't your mistress living there? I confronted Sean. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. I know everything. And obviously, Margaret knew about your mistress too, didn't she? What? I have no idea what you're saying. Margaret, hearing this, averted her eyes, as if trying to avoid the truth. Just as I suspected, Margaret was well aware of the affair. I had also begun to sense their plan once their scheme succeeded and I was arrested. They intended to divorce me and let Sean marry his mistress. Doubting both of them, I decided to consult James, my lawyer. James, I need to talk to you. Sean's been acting very suspicious lately. Through James, I hired an excellent private investigator to look into Sean. What came to light was not only Sean's infidelity, but also the fact that he had secretly quit his job. When everything was uncovered, Sean realized he couldn't deny it anymore and flew into a rage. Looks like you've learned too much. Cornered, Sean grabbed a knife and tried to take drastic measures. Yes, Sean. Get rid of that insolent woman already. Margaret tried to assist Sean, pinning James down to prevent him from intervening. But just then, someone shouted, "That's enough." The police stormed in at the sound of the voice. Although James now works as a lawyer, he used to be a prosecutor. Thanks to this, he still has many contacts in law enforcement. And after explaining the situation, he had them on standby. Damn it, it's the cops. Sean, just get out of here while you can. Margaret tried to shield Sean from the police to help him escape, but before she could call out to him, Sean had already fled on his own, leaving Margaret behind. What? No, Sean. However, officers were stationed outside as well, and Sean was easily captured. Sean and Margaret were both arrested on the spot for attempted murder. As he was forced into the police car, Sean struggled and shouted, "Melissa, you'll pay for this." He directed the words at me. Hey, that's a threat. You're just digging yourself into a deeper hole. James, standing beside me, calmly rebuked Sean's outburst. Meanwhile, Margaret, ever protective of Sean, tried to cover for him. It's my fault. Sean only did it because I told him to. But Sean, seizing the opportunity, tried to shift all the blame onto Margaret. Yay, it's all Mom's fault. It was a pitiful and disgraceful scene. Right after seeing Sean and Margaret being taken away, I felt a wave of relief and collapsed to the floor. James supported me as I lost my strength. Are you okay? You did the right thing by coming forward, he reassured me. Inside the beef stew Margaret had made, shards of a box cutter blade and pieces of glass were found. After everything, I was finally able to finalize my divorce from Sean. Now, with it all behind me, I continue working to help my community. On weekends, I cook meals and bring them to James. To this day, I'm still grateful to him. You've divorced Sean already. You don't need to keep visiting an old guy like me. He says this shyly, but I see James as a reflection of my late dad. For now, I plan to keep repaying the kindness he has shown me.
Tracy, your 60th birthday is coming up. I wanted to celebrate it nicely, so I booked a fancy restaurant. Let's enjoy a meal there. When these words came out of my daughter-in-law Susan's mouth, they were so elegant and refined, quite different from her usual self. My heart danced at the thought of the grand celebration, but inwardly, I felt uneasy about Susan's unusual demeanor. However, I later learned that it was my son, Hilton's idea, and Susan hadn't come up with it herself. I knew it. And yet, Susan had spoken as if it was her own idea, leaving me flabbergasted. Still, since they were going to celebrate my birthday, and it had been a while since I had a meal at a fancy restaurant, I decided to look forward to it. Maybe Susan would be kind while we enjoyed the delicious food. With that in mind, I eagerly awaited the day. On the day of my 60th birthday celebration, I stepped into the luxurious restaurant with a heart full of excitement, but Susan was nowhere to be seen. I waited for a few minutes, but as the clock ticked, my anxiety began to grow. The beautiful flowers and sparkling lights created an atmosphere of celebration for this special day, but the absence of the person who invited me felt strange. Just then, the owner approached me to guide me. And as soon as our eyes met, I was astonished. It was my childhood friend from middle school. "Wow, it's been so long! How have you been?" I exclaimed with joy, and she smiled back at me. The reunion after decades filled my heart with warm emotions. But in the next moment, she had a complicated expression on her face. Feeling uneasy, I followed her as she led me to the room. As soon as the door closed, she whispered urgently, "Get out of here right now." Her serious gaze made me flinch. What she revealed about Susan sent chills down my spine. "My name is Tracy, a 59-year-old working mother. My husband passed away early due to illness, and since then, I've been living alone. Fortunately, my in-laws and husband left me an inheritance, so I was able to manage to get by. I have a part-time job, mainly to find a sense of purpose in life. I could live without working, but I don't like staying cooped up at home alone, and more importantly, I want to stay connected with the world. I have an elder son named Hilton. He's 30 years old. He works for an international company and often goes on business trips abroad. My daughter-in-law, Susan, is a housewife, and they have no children. Susan is currently the cause of my distress. Thanks to working at an international company, Hilton earns a substantial income. I think he makes significantly more than his peers. As a result, Susan lives a wealthy lifestyle without having to work. That itself isn't a problem, but Susan has a bit of a spending habit, which has recently gotten worse. She does almost no housework, and their meals are mostly delivery, resulting in unnecessarily high food costs. Moreover, whenever I visit, their house is filled with more and more luxury brand items. Living such a lifestyle must leave Susan with a lot of free time on her hands. However, Susan rarely contacts me. As her mother-in-law, I feel a bit lonely and wish we could be closer. Susan only comes to my house when Hilton gives her some errand. This is a souvenir from Hilton's business trip. I've handed it over, okay? After completing her task, she leaves immediately. Why don't you stay for tea and relax for a while? I've invited her a few times, but each time, she responds irritably. I told you before, I'm busy. I'm not as free as you, Tracy. Honestly, I was worried about Hilton marrying a woman who treated her mother-in-law like this. I didn't want to worry Hilton, so I just smiled and brushed it off. However, Susan was always opinionated and had something to say about every little thing. For example, one day, Susan was unusually coming to visit my house. I wanted to welcome her warmly, so I prepared a lot of home-cooked dishes to entertain her. But my efforts were in vain, and Susan opened her mouth with a subtle expression. Tracy, this food isn't bad, but wouldn't it be better if it were a bit milder? Oh, I see. I'm sorry about that. I'll try to match your taste next time, Susan. I responded with a smile, but my heart was full of suspicion. Because previously, when I served her food, she said, "Isn't this way too bland? It might be good for someone your age, Tracy, but it's not to my taste. Isn't this way too bland? It might be good for someone your age, Tracy, but it's not to my taste." Susan always had a habit of pointing out small things about my cooking. Moreover, every time Susan came to my house, she had some kind of complaint. The TV volume is too high, the vase is slightly off-center. She criticized every little thing. Every time, her complaints were completely different, and I could only see it as nitpicking, but I endured it. One day, while I was out shopping, I happened to run into Susan. At that time, I was picking out new clothes, but Susan said, "Isn't that a bit dull? No one dresses like that these days." Her persistent criticism made me lose confidence. Furthermore, whenever Susan visited my house, it seemed like she was inspecting the kitchen and refrigerator. A refrigerator this full is a waste of electricity. You can't just cram it with food. I kept my thoughts about her lack of thriftiness and constant spending to myself. I do it all for Hilton, who works hard every day. I wanted to avoid causing unnecessary problems with Susan that would burden Hilton. Each time Susan visited, I tried to endure her remarks. Despite everything, I decided to accept her as family. No matter how unpleasant she was, Hilton chose her. There must be wonderful qualities in her that I hadn't seen yet. Thinking this, I tried hard to find good points about Susan. One day, Susan was out with friends and not at home. I was doing my usual chores when a delivery person arrived in the evening. Inside was a box filled with expensive ingredients. "The recipient is Tracy." I was surprised. I had no memory of ordering such a thing. However, upon further inquiry, it turned out that Susan had ordered it. She had me listed as the recipient since she would be out. "Did Susan order this?" When I asked, the delivery person nodded, so I reluctantly accepted it and stored it in the refrigerator until Susan returned. A few hours later, late at night, Susan apparently returned. "I'll take the stuff you were holding for me." Susan came and, without a word of thanks, opened the refrigerator and left quickly. As if that wasn't enough, her behavior afterward was even worse. "Hey! These ingredients are spoiled. How are you storing things?" Even though I had stored them immediately in the fridge, I was perplexed, but I apologized and added a word. "I'm sorry if they got spoiled. It was my mistake." "But Susan, it's not good to do that to others, even if it's okay with me." But she only glared at me and said nothing. After that, Susan occasionally sent old, bulky items to my house as cash on delivery. It was as if she thought of my home as a temporary storage facility. One day, Susan suddenly called me. "Tracy, your 60th birthday is coming up. Congratulations. I want to celebrate it nicely and invite you to a special place. How about it? Let's enjoy a meal at a fancy restaurant. Since you've always helped me, I want to give back on such an occasion. I'll choose the restaurant, so you just look forward to it, Tracy." The words from her mouth were so elegant and refined, completely different from her usual self. While my heart danced at the thought of the grand celebration, inwardly, I felt uneasy about Susan's unusual demeanor. However, later I learned that it was Hilton's idea, and Susan hadn't come up with it herself. I knew it. And yet, Susan had spoken as if it was her own idea, leaving me flabbergasted. Still, since they were going to celebrate my birthday, and it had been a while since I had a meal at a fancy restaurant, I decided to look forward to it. Maybe Susan would be kind while we enjoyed the delicious food. With that in mind, I eagerly awaited the day. The day I had been looking forward to finally arrived. With my heart dancing with excitement, I stepped into the fancy restaurant, but Susan was nowhere to be seen. I waited for a few minutes. As the clock ticked, my anxiety began to grow. Beautiful flowers and sparkling lights created an atmosphere celebrating the special day, but the absence of the person who invited me felt strange. Then, the owner approached me to guide me. And as soon as our eyes met, I was astonished. It was my childhood friend from middle school. "Wow, it's been so long. How have you been? How many years has it been? You haven't changed at all." I exclaimed with joy, and she smiled back at me. I exclaimed with joy, and she smiled back at me. "Oh, you're too kind. But there's no way I haven't changed. It's been decades. Still, what a coincidence that you would come here." The reunion after decades filled my heart with warm emotions. But in the next moment, she had a complicated expression on her face. She seemed to want to tell me something but couldn't bring herself to say it. Feeling uneasy, I followed her as she led me to a room. As soon as the door closed, she whispered urgently, "Get out of here right now." Her serious gaze made me flinch. I didn't know what she meant, but she started talking about Susan. Apparently, Susan had arrived much earlier than I did. The owner had shown Susan to the room first, but noticed something off about her behavior. In the private room, Susan had been talking loudly on her phone and displaying a very unpleasant attitude. She seemed quite rude, and the owner felt repelled by her. From the conversation, it became clear that Susan was talking to a loan shark. "Anyway, my mother-in-law will pay for everything today. She's coming soon, so just wait a bit." "What?" "Don't worry, she always bows to me. She's an old, doddering woman. Just press her a bit, and she'll pay up quietly. And make sure to keep your mouth shut. If my husband finds out, it'll be a big problem. I'm counting on you." This is what she had said. Feeling uneasy about Susan's behavior, the owner realized from the detailed instructions about the restaurant's location and time that something was definitely going to happen. "I didn't know what to do, but then you showed up. I had to tell you right away." The owner had the presence of mind to guide me to a different seat without Susan noticing and tell me everything. She also told me about the shocking phone conversation. Susan, who apparently loves luxury goods, couldn't sustain her spending with Hilton's salary alone and had debts all over the place. "She seems to owe a lot." I could hear yelling from the other side of the call. It didn't sound legitimate, probably loan sharks. According to what she heard, the amount had reached $50,000. Hearing that, I felt my eyes almost pop out. How could someone rack up so much debt, one after another? And to think she planned to make me pay for it all, it was beyond comprehension. But then, a thought occurred to me. If I run away now, wouldn't it just repeat the same cycle? Susan would find some reason to come to me for money again. She might even show up with loan sharks. In other words, running away wouldn't solve the fundamental problem. With this realization, I finally made a decision. I had been lenient with Susan, considering Hilton. But I couldn't tolerate it any longer. More importantly, it wasn't fair to Hilton to stay with such a person. Despite earning a good salary at an international company, he was being exploited. Thinking about Hilton, I felt a deep sense of injustice. So, I told the owner, "I have an idea. Please take me to the same room as her." The owner was very surprised. "If you do that, the loan sharks will really come." She was genuinely worried about me. But I responded firmly to her concern. "I understand that. But running away won't change anything. I've endured it so far, but now it's time to eliminate the root cause." The owner's shoulders relaxed and smiled. "That's right. You've always been determined once you made up your mind." "Understood. If you're that resolved, you must have a solid plan." She said this and guided me to the room where Susan was waiting. "What were you doing?" "You were late. I was worried you wouldn't come." When I arrived, Susan seemed visibly shaken. She must have feared what the loan sharks might do if I didn't show up. Seeing me appear, her expression showed a bit of relief. But I knew all about her scheme. I won't let her have her way. Before coming to this room, I had made a phone call. While chatting with Susan, I was anxiously waiting for my call's recipient to arrive. As time passed, Susan grew increasingly irritated. She probably wanted the loan shark to arrive quickly. Then, the owner spoke from the other side of the door. "Excuse me. your companion has arrived. Susan, with a loud voice, said, "Please let them in immediately." Certainly. However, the person who walked in wasn't a loan shark. Instead, a woman in a police uniform stood there. What? A police officer? What is going on? Long time no see, Susan. I hear you've been giving Mom a hard time. The person who appeared was my daughter, Yolanda. She is an active duty police officer. I had been consulting her about Susan's harassment for some time. Then, the owner spoke up. I overheard everything you said on the phone. You were trying to make this lady pay off your debts, weren't you? With this, Susan finally seemed to grasp the situation. I see, that's what this is about. So you called the police. I didn't say anything like that. This is just a big misunderstanding. But Yolanda pressed on. This lady says she heard everything clearly. Unlike me, Yolanda is strong-willed. She is not afraid to speak her mind to anyone. Her personality alone is intimidating enough, but today she was wearing her police uniform, which would surely make Susan feel even more uneasy. What proof do you have? Maybe she just misheard. Susan tried to play dumb. She even cast a disdainful glance at me. At that moment, I decided to reveal everything. I've told Yolanda everything about you. She held back because of Hilton, but she always told me to report any danger immediately. Apparently, today is that day. Realizing that everything was known, Susan suddenly changed her attitude and began to shout. Don't mess with me. People like you should just keep paying up. Both you and that idiot Hilton. With that, Susan threw a glass from the table at me. But the glass missed me and hit the pillar with a loud crash. Then Yolanda said, Hilton, you heard everything, right? She pulled out her phone from her pocket. On the screen was Hilton's name, shining brightly in an ongoing call. Susan! I heard everything! You were bullying Mom behind my back? And what's this about debts? I've given you more than enough money for living expenses. Hilton's loud, angry voice echoed from the phone. Even Susan was flustered and began making desperate excuses. No, it's not like that. We were just joking around, right, Tracy? She probably thought she could fool us because it was over the phone. But Yolanda warned Hilton. Don't be deceived. She just threw a glass at Mom. Don't be deceived. She just threw a glass at Mom. Hilton was furious. What? The sound of something breaking earlier, was that? We're getting a divorce. I'm on my way there, so be prepared. Hilton ended the call and seemed to be rushing over. It turned out that Susan had given me a time 2 hours earlier than planned. In other words, she wanted to have me meet the loan shark early. Hilton, deceived by Susan, didn't know we had arrived early and was still working. When Susan realized that the furious Hilton was coming, she turned pale. What should I do? If this continues, I'll be divorced. Please, you have to say something. Even now, Susan didn't apologize and clung to us. What nonsense are you talking about? In this situation, no one will help you. Stop being so spoiled. Since I had never spoken harshly to Susan before, she seemed quite shocked. But if Hilton comes, it will be over. What should I do? You don't have to wait for Hilton. You are coming with us to the station. Despite her panic, Yolanda added, for all the harassment towards Mom and especially throwing the glass at her, you'll be charged with assault. And I witnessed everything, so there's no escaping this. As for your debts, you will have to pay them back yourself. With those words, Susan finally resigned herself and was taken away by Yolanda in a daze. It was later revealed that Susan had indeed been involved with loan sharks. Susan had a strong desire to show off to those around her. To do so, she decked herself out in luxury goods and boasted to the other mom friends. Hilton's income wasn't enough, so she secretly turned to various loan sharks. But Hilton's reaction when he heard about it was surprising. To be honest, I had a feeling. I was at fault for leaving the household finances to Susan, but when I checked the account recently, it was at zero. Hilton had also been consulting Yolanda about Susan. Yolanda had been waiting for an opportunity to expose the loan sharks by using Susan. As a follow-up, thanks to Yolanda's efforts, the loan sharks were successfully apprehended. This incident prompted Hilton to serve Susan with divorce papers and tell her, "Get out of the house right now." Of course, Susan didn't want to give up her luxurious lifestyle. She refused frantically, not wanting a divorce because of her huge debts. "Can you still say that after seeing this?" Hilton showed her a compiled record of her debts and evidence of her harassment towards me. "If you don't want a divorce, pay off all your debts by yourself right now. And deeply apologize to Mom for all the harassment. Don't come back until she forgives you completely." At that moment, Susan came to me, crying and apologizing. "I'm truly sorry. I was out of my mind. I promised to change. Please forgive me." But I knew her apology was only superficial. She needed my forgiveness to get Hilton to revoke the divorce. In essence, she was only apologizing deeply for Hilton's money. Raise your head. No matter what you do, the past won't disappear. I can't support you up close, but from now on, please change as you say and do your best. I told her not to involve me anymore and sent her away. Eventually, Susan, unable to find any way out, vanished to escape the loan sharks, and now nobody knows where she is or what she is doing. My 60th birthday celebration was held again at a later date. There, I shared old stories with Hilton and Yolanda, reminiscing with the owner. After all, it had been decades since then. The story got quite lengthy, and I could tell both of them were getting tired of it. "Mom, that's enough. We already heard that story." Hilton and Yolanda, though smiling wryly, continued to listen, making me happy, so I kept talking. Being able to laugh like this is a blessing. Reaffirming this, I quietly smiled with relief. From now on, I want to enjoy a peaceful life with just my family. I have a liver disease and need to be hospitalized. The word hospitalized from my husband Oliver's serious mouth shocked me. When I listened closely, I learned that his liver was damaged due to excessive drinking and that he might need a transplant. I didn't realize it was that serious and couldn't say anything to Oliver. "My liver is in pretty bad shape, and it looks like I need a transplant." "I see. I hope I'm a match as a donor." The test results showed I was a match, so I hurried to Oliver's hospital room to surprise him. But when I opened the door, I was met with a shocking sight. "Emily." "Oh? Are you Oliver's wife? You certainly seem like a stiff person." "What?" Oliver had a guilty look on his face, and the woman, who seemed to be a nurse, looked down at me with disdain. It was obvious they had a relationship beyond professional bounds. Feeling my heart pounding, I demanded an explanation from Oliver. "After I get out of here, I'm going to be with her. You're no longer needed, so get out of this room." Not only was he having an affair, but he was also declaring a divorce. It was an incredible betrayal. Determined to give Oliver and his mistress what they deserved, I left the room just as they wanted. However, whatever the outcome, it was no longer my concern. "My name is Emily. I'm a 32-year-old housewife. I met Oliver when I was working in customer service at a small office supply company. He was a banker who came to our office. A friend from work told me that our company had taken a loan from the bank before. I had seen Oliver then, but I didn't know him personally. Oliver's cheerful personality made him quite popular with my colleagues, which was in stark contrast to my strict and serious approach to work. At first, I felt a lot of jealousy. He also seemed uninterested in me, so we usually exchanged only brief greetings when we passed each other in the office. Hi there. Hello. You're working hard as always. Even so, I couldn't help but be impressed by his bright demeanor, although I kept my jealousy to myself. I thought having a few work friends like my colleagues was enough, but unconsciously, I started noticing Oliver more. This didn't help, and I ended up making a mistake at work that caused trouble with a client. My boss, who was surprised as it was rare for me to make mistakes, was concerned. It's unusual for you to mess up with a client. At first, I thought it was a rumor. I'm sorry. I'm not blaming you. You've always been reliable. Can I trust you to handle the situation? Yes. Feeling embarrassed and angry at myself for worrying my boss, I nodded weakly and returned to my desk. I had worked harder than anyone since joining the company as a new graduate, and I didn't want to drag everyone down here. That day, I stayed late to handle the issue, holding a one-person reflection meeting when Oliver came to the department and spoke to me. Aren't you from the bank? Do you need something? Oh, I just forgot some documents. I came to get them. I see. With that, I averted my gaze from him. I was writing down how to avoid making the same mistake again on a blank sheet of paper. Then, his voice sounded impressed. When I realized he was still there, I glared at him in surprise, and Oliver apologized with a sheepish look on his face. Sorry. I thought you were very meticulous. Don't you have something you forgot? I think you have more important things to do than bothering with me. My words might have come out a bit cold, but given that I was feeling down about a work failure and had someone nearby who made me feel jealous, it was only natural that my tone got a bit harsh. I tried to convince myself of this, but when I looked at the silent Oliver, I thought maybe I had gone too far. Then Oliver smiled and said, "You are strict and serious about your work. It's a good thing, but I think it's also important to take a break once in a while." Yes, that's true. He doesn't know anything about me, yet he says whatever he likes. He's probably just trying to be kind. But at that moment, I didn't have the emotional capacity to consider such things. We weren't that close, and it felt intrusive and uncomfortable that he was trying to get inside my personal space. So, I couldn't believe what Oliver said next. You don't believe me, do you? When I had trouble with a client, I used to have solo reflection sessions. What? That was unexpected. People like him, who are trusted by those around them and lift everyone's spirits, didn't seem like the type to reflect on things alone. But the look on Oliver's face when he said it was so similar to mine that I knew he was telling the truth. If you want, why don't you tell me what happened? Talking about it might make you feel better, and you might come up with a good idea. Seeing his serious expression, I found myself agreeing before I knew it. Oliver went to retrieve what he had forgotten first, and we decided to talk over dinner outside. I waited at my desk. What is he planning? The dining place was a private room in a rather upscale restaurant. I felt uneasy because I don't usually go to such places. Oliver seemed to notice that and laughed a little, making me blush as I glared at him. Sorry. You just looked so out of place that I found it cute. Cute? I stood up, raising my voice more than I expected, and started to worry about the people around us. But since we were in a private room, there was no need to worry, and I sat back down. From that point on, Oliver led the conversation, and when I talked about how I was handling the trouble at work, he gave very precise advice. It was hard to imagine this side of Oliver from his usual behavior. He seemed intellectual and thoughtful. Maybe this is the real him, a capable man at work. Thanks to Oliver's advice, the trouble was resolved, so I thought I should thank him. However, Oliver was very popular among the employees, and I thought it might be annoying if someone like me, who usually doesn't talk to him, suddenly did, so I waited for the right moment. Finally, the opportunity came. When I thanked him for his help, he smiled and told me not to worry about it. "Well, how about you invite me to dinner as thanks? That's the condition for accepting your gratitude." "All right. I'll invite you sometime." He said he'd be waiting for my invitation, waving as he left the office. I didn't feel like having dinner with a male friend, but leaving a debt unpaid was even worse. So a week later, I invited him, and he immediately agreed. Since it was our day off, it almost felt like a date. He exuded the calm and reassuring demeanor of a gentleman, and I was surprised at how comfortable I felt around him. I used to be so jealous of him, who was different from me in every way, but now, we're practically going on dates. After that, having dinner once a month became our regular event, and a year later, he asked me out. "I've been drawn to your strict and serious nature, and the way you become cute when flustered. I think we can be great partners, so I want to date you with marriage in mind. Maybe I've been attracted to you without realizing it. Yes, let's date." And so, our relationship began. Oliver taught me about places and things I didn't know, and it made me happy to see him trying to make me enjoy myself. As our relationship progressed over the years, I even began to think we could get married. Little did I know, our happiness was about to crumble. One day, after a date, as I was about to go home, he stopped me and proposed with a ring. Of course, I immediately accepted since my mind was already made up. We had a wedding with blessings from our parents and colleagues, and it didn't feel real during the ceremony since I never thought I would get married. However, once we decided on a house and started living together, it suddenly hit me that we were really married. From now on, I aimed to be a wife who could devote herself to Oliver. When we discussed it before marriage, Oliver said he would be happy to have someone to support him, so I decided to become a housewife. It wasn't an easy decision to leave a job I had dedicated myself to. But I was happy to be needed by Oliver and thought of it as repaying his kindness to me, so I decided to quit my job, despite my colleagues and employees regretting it. At that time, my boss told me I could come back anytime, and I was grateful to realize that I was more needed at the company than I thought. "I never expected you to marry Oliver from our business partner. And it's surprising that it's you." "I think so too. I used to dislike him, thinking he had a frivolous personality, but you never know what life will bring." After thanking my boss for all the help, I finished handing over my duties and left the company. Looking at the building where the company was located, I felt a pang of sadness even though I wasn't leaving for good, and I headed home to brush off that feeling. Our married life was smooth, with him always thanking me, and we continued our monthly dining out, looking forward to possibly having children someday. However, it was 1 year into our marriage when he started to change. He began to treat me as if I were a housekeeper, asking for chores and complaining about the housework. Of course, I couldn't stay silent, so I retorted, "You're annoying. Just listen to what I say and quietly do the housework. You're a housewife, so taking care of me shouldn't be a big deal. You asked me to be a housewife, but now you're saying this. If you hated it so much, you should have refused." Snorting, he looked away from me and started fiddling with his smartphone. What on earth happened to him? Though I was angry at his words, I thought something might have happened at work. But I knew that if I probed too deeply, it would only worsen his mood and damage our relationship. That day, I gave up on talking to him and decided to wait for another day when he was calmer to ask about things. However, from then on, his domineering behavior at home only accelerated, and he became more stringent with time. He began complaining if the shower wasn't ready at his exact timing. I told you to have the shower ready when I come home from work. Can't you even do that simple thing? Well, I'm doing housework and other errands you asked for, so I don't always have the time. If you have such a problem, why don't you do it yourself? What? Are you saying it's my fault? You're blaming me too now. Another time, when I brought coffee to Oliver's study, he not only complained about the timing but also the taste, berating me. Maybe you think it's easy being a housewife, but I'm tired from work every day, and I'm sick of hearing your complaints. Then you could at least help me out a little? I understand you're tired or busy with work, but on your days off, you could take over some chores. What? I want to use my days off for myself. I don't want to waste time on that. Now, go make a new pot of coffee. There was no point in talking that day either, so I quietly went to make new coffee. How did it come to this? The happy days of our early marriage now felt like a distant past. Despite my repeated attempts to have discussions with him, he dismissed the need for any talks, saying that a housewife is practically the maid of the husband. He ignored me, always engrossed in his smartphone, with a smirk on his face. Moreover, to escape my pursuit, he increased the number of outings he called drinking parties. Now, he doesn't come home until late at night more than 10 times a month. Our monthly dinner together had ceased without me noticing, and I was shocked. It's unusual for a banker like him to go out for drinks so often, raising my suspicions considering his usual behavior. Sometimes, he came home heavily drunk, supported by a subordinate from work, and became particularly aggressive towards me. I had no choice but to wait until he fell asleep to calm down. You're so cute, totally different from my wife. But I'm married, after all. What is that about? Is it about a game? When in a good mood or drunk, he would say similar things. Having once seen him play a smartphone game featuring beautiful female characters, I had my doubts but didn't pay much attention. One day, he came home from work with a serious face and said he needed to talk to me in the living room. Actually, I've developed a liver disease and need to be hospitalized. What? The word hospitalization shook me up considerably. Although Oliver had changed, I couldn't imagine him being sick due to his naturally bright personality. When I listened to Oliver in detail, he said his liver had been damaged from drinking too much, and he might need a transplant. I hadn't realized it was that severe, and I couldn't find words to say to him. I'll be hospitalized for a while, so I'll have to take a leave from work. I plan to pay the hospitalization fees from my savings, but if it drags on, I'll need you to help pay too. Okay. It was the first time I saw him, usually so overbearing, looking down and dejected. But we couldn't afford to be leisurely. If the disease was quite severe, Oliver might have to quit his job. The hospitalization costs could continue indefinitely, raising concerns about living expenses. I understand, leave it to me. Even though I was dissatisfied with his attitude, I had decided to support him and couldn't do anything halfway, so I decided to return to work. However, returning to the company as a full-time employee was not realistic because of him and our living situation. So, I consulted my boss about the possibility of working from home on a freelance basis. I see. Our company is considering introducing remote work on a trial basis right now, so it's perfect timing. With your track record at the company, you're more than qualified, and we would actually like to ask you to do it. Thank you very much. Understanding our circumstances, nothing could be more encouraging. Receiving the expected positive response from my boss over the phone, I felt relieved to have secured our living foundation for the time being. Thanks to this, even after Oliver was hospitalized, I could work from home and visit him 3 times a week, giving me enough time to think about improving our marriage. My liver is in pretty bad shape, and it looks like I'll need a transplant. Oh. I hope they find a donor. The test results indicated that a liver transplant was necessary, and Oliver asked me to get tested to see if I could be a suitable donor, so I decided to undergo the test. This was because when Oliver was admitted to the hospital, he confided something to me. Recently, work hasn't been going well. And a little while ago, I made a big mistake and the company told me to take responsibility for it. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to worry you. Oh, I see. Before Oliver started trying to control everything at home, he never showed weakness or relied on me for anything. That had gradually become a burden and stress for him. He tried to make up for his mistake, but it didn't work out, and he eventually turned to alcohol for escape. Although I hadn't been told about it, I didn't know that Oliver was struggling with such worries, and I realized that this was the cause of his drastic change. I'm sorry for being harsh without knowing. True, when I couldn't relax at work, coming home and having you snap at me made it feel like I had no place to be at ease, so I turned to drinking. But still, I wish you had confided in me. I always thought that marriage was about supporting each other, and while I was focused on supporting Oliver, I might not have considered his feelings. As I was unable to say anything, he concluded with these words. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. But I wanted you to consider my feelings too. It's okay. If we made mistakes, we can start over again. These words were more for myself than for Oliver. Indeed, his attitude might have had some issues, but reflecting on myself, I resolved to have better conversations from now on. When I found out that I was a suitable donor, I hurried to the hospital room to surprise and make Oliver happy. Then, I heard voices coming from inside and stopped in my tracks. I couldn't hear the content of the conversation, but he seemed to be talking to a woman and sounded quite familiar. Maybe it was a colleague from his company? I decided to wait in front of the hospital room until the conversation was over, but after an hour had passed without anyone coming out, I had a bad feeling and prepared my smartphone before opening the door to the hospital room, revealing a surprising scene. Emily. Oh, you must be Oliver's wife? You certainly seem like a strict person. What? What is this? Oliver had an awkward expression, while the woman who appeared to be a nurse looked down on me with a disdainful expression. The situation made it glaringly obvious that they were more than just colleagues. Feeling my heart pounding fiercely, I demanded an explanation from him. What on earth is going on? Oh well, now that you've found out, there's nothing we can do. I'm going to be with her. I'm so happy. While they were basking in their romantic moment, my heart was boiling with anger like molten lava. Oliver, mistaking my shock for something else, decided to push the divorce papers in front of me and suggest we part ways. Once I get out of the hospital, I'll be with her, so you're no longer needed. Can you leave this hospital soon? I feel destined to be with him. I'm sorry for taking your husband. As the reality of the divorce declaration set in, I felt my long-standing frustration reach its peak, and any love I had for Oliver began to dissipate. I couldn't forgive him for having an affair without any remorse. They say that extreme anger can make you unusually calm, but I never imagined I'd experience it firsthand. Feeling nauseous at the sight of the two of them cozying up, I steeled myself for retribution and left the hospital room. What followed turned his hospital room into a scene one would want to look away from. Back home, overwhelmed by anger and sadness from his betrayal, I cried for a few minutes. Had I done something wrong? However, knowing that Oliver had no love for me, I had no intention of turning back. Once I regained my composure, I started preparing for the divorce and my retribution against him. A month later, having completed all my preparations, I headed to the front door for my final goodbye to the house I shared with Oliver. Just as I was about to leave, my smartphone rang loudly, showing Oliver's number. Ignoring it several times, I finally answered, only to be met with immediate blame.
Why aren't you visiting me? Can't you at least bring my clothes and the things I want? You're making my life in the hospital miserable. As a housewife, you should at least take care of me.
What are you talking about?
You told me not to show my face, so I was just following your orders.
I was surprised at the cold tone of my own voice in response to Oliver's nonsensical remarks. I thought his unreasonable scolding might make me shrink back, but a month had been enough time to move on. Oliver sighed in exasperation at my words and started saying that he had been joking back then.
You took my words seriously, and that's why you declared a divorce. I knew I made the right choice to be with her.
Even though I hadn't prompted it, Oliver started boasting about her and laughing at how inferior I was compared to her. I thought about hanging up, but his next words shocked me to my core.
Oh, by the way, she told me you're a compatible donor, so I need you to help me out.
What?
Honestly, it's irresponsible not to inform me about your compatibility. You should go back to elementary school.
What was he talking about? I couldn't believe that my ex-husband was asking me to donate to him when the divorce papers had already been accepted. While I had tried to comply with him during our marriage, he was gravely mistaken if he thought he could still treat me like a toy.
There isn't a single organ I'd give to someone who's completely unrelated to me now. And I'm not so kind-hearted as to take care of someone who betrayed my dedication in the worst way possible with an affair.
More than anything, it was absurd to think I could ever trust my ex-husband again. I unleashed all the pent-up frustration, anger, and betrayed sadness I had been holding back. Oliver hadn't expected me to go this far, and he was so shaken that he couldn't say a word.
Of course, I refuse to be your donor, and I won't be taking care of you. You'd better find happiness with your affair partner.
As I continued to lash out, he finally seemed to snap back to reality and called me heartless. It's highly questionable whether Oliver even had the right to say such things.
How could you speak to me like this when I'm still your family? If I die because of this, it will be your fault. You still won't be my donor?
Family, right. At the beginning of our marriage, I did see Oliver as family. But once he transformed into a tyrant, treating me like a servant, he erased all those feelings. Ignoring all the abuse and infidelity he had inflicted on me and now trying to impose his demands was just too convenient.
Sorry, but after all you've done and your affair, I can't see you as family anymore, nor do I want to. What? What do you think a person's life is worth? If I don't go back to work, you won't be able to live on your own. I never thought you were such a cold-hearted woman.
That's exactly what I should be saying to him. Everyone knows that human life is precious, and maybe normally, I should be willing to donate without a second thought. But reality isn't that simple. Especially in my current situation, moral lectures had no effect on me. Just then, the woman who had been standing by his side, his affair partner, chimed in with a voice dripping with insincerity.
I agree with Oliver. As a nurse, I'm telling you, you need to donate. After it's done, you can go wherever you want.
The switch of anger flipped inside me,
and with no more feelings left for either of them, I felt no guilt about my plan. At that moment, I heard the sound of the hospital room door being flung open through the phone, and the two of them gasped in surprise.
What is the meaning of this? So it's true. Weren't you going to marry me?
From the voices, I could tell there were multiple women, and he seemed to recognize what was happening. This was one of my plans for retribution. The day after he threw me out of the hospital room, I began to wonder if there were other women he was cheating with, so I hired a detective and used social media to reach out to potential victims. Just like me, these women had been approached when they were vulnerable and were led into relationships, each in different ways, but ultimately ending up involved with him. Without realizing it, I had fallen into a trap. As a result, his hospital room turned into a scene I could barely stand to look at.
You all have been betrayed by Oliver, just like I was. Even though I'm his wife, I want to punish him in the way that hurts him the most now that we know his true nature.
They might not believe me, but I needed him to face justice. Asking them for help out of the blue, without giving them time to process everything, was probably too much. But I couldn't back down now and ignore his victims, nor could I give up. One woman agreed to help, and that decision quickly spread, leading everyone to join in. As I prepared to exact my revenge on him, I shared all the terrible things he had done, and as they listened in disbelief, their expressions gradually turned to anger, declaring they would never forgive him. And that leads us to the present.
What are you talking about? I don't know you people. That's a lie. There's no way I'd mistake the face of the person who picked up my wallet that day. It's too late to pretend you don't know us now.
We're the victims group.
And you know exactly who the leader is. No way.
Oliver seemed to realize that I was the leader of the victims group, and in his shock, he dropped his smartphone from the bed. One of the victimized women picked it up, switched to a video call, and spoke to me.
Emily, there were some unexpected things, but can we start?
Of course. I wanted to join in person, but we can proceed with Oliver's punishment even this way. Even though he hadn't been persistently calling today, it was the day we planned to execute our punishment. Oliver's pointless chatter had delayed us, and we almost missed the scheduled time. However, even through the screen, we could see him and the other woman, so I returned to the living room and listened to the conversation from the hospital room.
We all intend to sue you. If you have any excuses, let's hear them now. Just so you know, we won't show any mercy, so be prepared. Hey, who are these people? Aren't they being too rude to you?
Well, you see. In the end, with no sense of crisis, the other woman and the victimized women cornered Oliver, who, struggling to find words, finally managed to speak. But then, he started making excuses.
It's true that I loved you all. But the stress from work failures led me to reach out to various women. It wasn't something I wanted to do.
We could all see through his fake tears, leaving all of us, including myself, in stunned silence. The truth was that the story about his work failure was half true, half lie. He had been demoted after being caught trying to hit on a woman at work by his boss. We learned this from his colleagues when we were looking for other victims, which made me feel doubly betrayed.
I resorted to drinking, wandering around bars all day, venting about work, and meeting with you. But it was all to soothe my loneliness. I needed it.
Oliver's attempts to justify himself made me feel nauseous. It seemed his usually cheerful personality was just a mask he wore to make such excuses, making me trust him even less. As Oliver became more talkative, spewing hollow words to gain our forgiveness, I played a recording that changed the atmosphere in the hospital room. The recording contained the conversation when he kicked me out, mentioning the victimized women.
Divorcing this person is fine, But there are others who love you too, right? Will you properly break it off with them? I'm worried.
Don't worry. The women here are just temporary. I plan to break up with them when the time is right. Honestly, they're not my type, so I intended to end things soon. Despite me standing right there, they talked as if I didn't exist, so I recorded everything. I had suspected his infidelity before opening the hospital room door that day, but I wanted to believe in him until the truth was confirmed. I never imagined it would come to this, but having this recording was incredibly useful for my revenge on Oliver, so I decided to use it to my advantage. A person with moral integrity doesn't cheat with multiple women or treat his wife poorly. And by the way, if you're worried about how I'm doing, I'm working from home now, so I'm not having any issues. What? When I interrupted, Oliver froze, staying silent for a while. He realized that the only person on his side was his mistress, and his face turned pale. Watching him through the screen with pity, I saw Oliver tell his mistress to say something back.
Huh? It's the truth, so what? Anyway, let's talk about our future married life. I'm so excited about it.
Was she reminiscing about her life with him, or was she simply lost in her own world while responding to Oliver's words without arguing back? At that moment, another nurse, who had overheard the commotion in his hospital room, seemed to have brought the director of nursing. The scene was shocking, making anyone want to look away. However, when it became clear that the central figure was the woman having an affair, the director sighed in exasperation and groaned. When one of the victimized women explained the situation between the cheating woman and her husband, the director of nursing decided to fire the nurse on the spot.
Yay! If Oliver gets better, that means I get to live my dream of being a housewife, right? Finally, my luck is turning around.
It seemed she was happy about losing her job, oblivious to her situation. Her abnormality was beyond my imagination. In contrast, Oliver appeared to be in despair, and I ended the call with a final parting shot.
Now you suffer the consequences for neglecting and betraying women.
Perhaps I had foreseen his tragic end. The story after I hung up was recounted by a friend who happened to be visiting her father in the hospital and witnessed the scene. The woman having the affair was fired and sued for alimony by the victimized woman, but she seemed optimistic, relying on Oliver's earnings. However, his phone rang, and he was fired by his boss when the affair was exposed. Upon hearing this, she abruptly changed and broke up with him. The company's reputation was at stake, which could affect the bank's credibility, so it was a natural response.
She had this furious look, saying it wasn't what she signed up for, and that she only considered marrying him because he was a banker.
In the end, it was all about the money.
So what did he do?
It's really pathetic. He begged her not to leave, pleading for her to stay. But she had her eyes set on wealthy patients in the hospital, so she ignored him completely. I began to understand why the director of nursing looked so troubled at that moment.
I knew it would come to this. It's his own fault.
Eventually, Oliver and the cheating woman broke up. In a desperate attempt, he tried to contact me to reconcile, but I had already changed my number. Oliver's reputation spread within the industry, making it hard for him to find a new job. He's now juggling part-time jobs to pay the alimony. The other day, I ran into him at a convenience store counter.
It made me feel so bad I decided never to go there again. What happened to the woman he was cheating with?
I heard she disappeared. However, the victimized woman confirmed that the alimony payments were still being made, so there was no need for concern. It's no longer my concern, and I have no intention of worrying about it. I still keep in touch with the members of the support group for victims, and we're determined to turn this story into something we can laugh about. I moved out of the house I shared with him, and now I enjoy a carefree single life, working from home. By now, they're probably struggling in their misery, hopefully learning a bit about how it feels to be betrayed.
Oh, if it isn't Emily.
While looking at craft supplies in the department store with my husband Lucas, our son Aiden, and Aiden's wife Grace, someone called out from behind. Turning around, there stood Amelia, an old friend from high school, with a smile on her face. Amelia was holding the hand of a little boy. "Amelia, it's been a while. Is this your grandson?"
Yes, this is Oliver, my lively 3-year-old grandson.
Amelia squinted her eyes and gently patted her grandson's head. "Oh, your grandson, Oliver, goes to the same childcare center as Emily's, doesn't he?"
Eh? We don't have any grandchildren yet.
In front of Grace, who has difficulty having children. "Please, let's not talk about grandchildren." Thinking this, I tried to change the subject.
Eh? But that's your son, right?
Amelia pointed at Aiden and said, "Yes, that's our son Aiden. And this is his wife, Grace. Over there is my husband, Lucas." Everyone nodded to Amelia, but her gaze stayed fixed on Aiden.
You pick up someone from Sunny Days Childcare, right?
Amelia spoke to Aiden with a serious face. Aiden looked perplexed. Could it be a mistake? Aiden and Grace don't have any children yet. I tried to correct Amelia, but she shook her head.
You sometimes pick up Mia, right? Oliver loves Mia and often talks about her at home.
Mia? Who's that? Looking at Aiden, he started to tremble with his head down. Lucas and Grace looked at Aiden and Amelia with suspicion. "Grandma, I need to go to the bathroom."
Oh, we better hurry then. See you later.
Pulled by Oliver, Amelia ran off towards the restroom.
What's going on?
Grace murmured in a tone I had never heard before, glaring at Aiden. Aiden remained silent with his head down. Returning home in silence, everyone except Aiden sat on the sofa. Aiden just stood near the living room door.
Aiden, explain.
Lucas's deep and stern voice filled the room. Finally, Aiden started talking. "My name is Emily. I married Lucas, who is 5 years older than me, through a friend's introduction. When we were dating, I, who enjoy crafting, gave Lucas a pair of gloves I made myself for the first time as a present."
Is this really handmade? Thank you. I'll cherish it.
Lucas said, and from the next day, he began wearing the gloves to work. Half a year later, we got married, and Lucas continued to use the gloves I gave him for the next winter, and the winter after that. "You've been using them for 3 years now. Let's get you a new pair."
Then make me another pair.
Since then, making gloves in Lucas's favorite pattern has become my event every few years. After our son Aiden was born, I started making matching gloves for Aiden as well.
It's nice to have the same as Dad. Yeah.
Aiden, who used to happily accept them, refused to wear his mom's handmade gloves when he became a middle schooler.
I don't need gloves.
It's not cold. Don't say that.
Mom's gloves are really warm. Well, it's just that age. It's enough if Lucas uses them.
Even though I stopped making gloves for Aiden, I continued to make them for Lucas. Aiden started living on his own when he went to college, and after getting a job, he began living an hour away from our house. We weren't on bad terms, but Aiden rarely contacted us, and he wouldn't come back to his parents' home unless we invited him. When Aiden was 23, he unexpectedly called. "Mom, I'm coming home this Sunday. Will Dad be there?"
Oh, what's up? Dad doesn't have any plans and should be home.
"I'll be there around 2 p.m. I have someone I want to introduce." After saying that, Aiden hung up. "Someone he wants to introduce?"
Hey, Lucas!
My heart racing, I called for Lucas.
What's the matter? Why are you yelling? Aiden said he's bringing someone he wants to introduce this Sunday.
Lucas was momentarily surprised, but quickly cleared his throat and said,
Aiden's only 23, right? He's just getting used to work, and I'm not sure if he'll bring someone you're expecting, Emily.
Do you think so? I have a feeling he'll bring a wonderful woman. Despite Lucas's half-amused, half-exasperated reaction, I counted down the days to Sunday. And then the long-awaited Sunday arrived. After 2 p.m. passed and I was getting restless, I heard Aiden's voice from the entrance. I'm home.
Welcome back.
Trying to appear calm, I went to the entrance and saw a petite, cute woman standing next to Aiden. This is Grace, I'm dating her.
Nice to meet you. I've been seeing Aiden for a year now.
Nice to meet you. Please come in. Dad's waiting in the living room. Peeking into the living room, Lucas was unnaturally opening the newspaper, waiting for Grace to greet him.
Nice to meet you.
Make yourself at home. Lucas, clearly nervous as he stood up, was amusing to watch.
This is something I made, if you'd like.
Grace handed over a coaster.
It's beautiful. My favorite orange and Lucas's favorite blue. I asked Aiden about your favorite colors.
Looking closely at the coaster, initials were written on the edge. Grace, is crafting your hobby? I asked, feeling delighted.
Yes, I love crafting.
Grace smiled warmly. I like it too. It's nice to have a hobby in common.
It's not just a hobby. Grace is making a name for herself as a handmade artist.
I'm grateful to be able to make my hobby my work, Grace said with a smile. Perhaps the knit vest and earrings Grace was wearing were also handmade. Thinking that Grace's gentle aura came from wearing handmade items made me happy. We both love crafting, and that got us really excited. Grace shared all sorts of information about crafting supplies. Did you know this store has sales every 20th of the month? And on their website, they even sell yarns in colors like these.
You're a pro, Grace. Keep those tips coming.
Of course. While we were chatting, Lucas and Aiden were quietly listening in. Sorry for hogging the conversation. I knew this would happen, Aiden said with a laugh. Before we knew it, it was time for Aiden and his friend to leave.
Grace is such a nice person. I wish she'd marry soon.
That night, I couldn't help but gush to Lucas. Can you believe Grace is the same age as Aiden, 23, and yet so mature? If she became Aiden's wife, I'd be relieved. Lucas laughed as he said this, looking at me. What?
Aiden bringing someone who loves crafting. You must be special to him.
I was a bit shocked when he said he didn't need any more gloves, but I'm glad he appreciates handmade things. Both Lucas and I were looking forward to Aiden and Grace getting married. And as if they knew our wishes, their marriage discussions progressed rapidly, and they got married 6 months later. Aiden and Grace started living in an apartment 20 minutes away by car from us. Grace worked on her creations at home, handling everything from production to sales, and she seemed busy all the time. Even if it's a labor of love, it seemed hard. So, using the excuse of making too much food, I often brought dinner over to Aiden's place. Emily, thank you so much. I'm sorry I haven't been much of a wife since we got married. Grace looked apologetic. It's okay. Housework should be done by those who can. We're glad you live close by, so feel free to rely on us. After saying this, Grace expressed her gratitude. Thank you. I finally feel like my work is catching the wave, so I think now is the time to really push myself. Oh, Emily, good timing. Then Grace, from the back of the room, fetched a pair of new earrings to show me. Seeing Grace talk about her creations with such passion was dazzling, and I felt a renewed desire to support her. It's often said there's a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict, but that was foreign to us. We would go out to eat or shop together, and I thought of Grace, who shared my interests as if she were my own daughter, and Grace had opened her heart to me. Of course, we had been living happily up until now, but becoming a family with Grace thanks to Aiden's marriage allowed me to spend my days in joy and fulfillment. 2 years flew by since they got married. They are both now 28. Aiden and Grace are doing well in their jobs, have a good relationship with each other, and get along with me and Lucas. While everything seems to be going well, the couple did not have children yet. Once, I asked Grace about having children. Then Grace apologized. "I'm sorry. I took our youth for granted, but it turns out I have a condition that makes it hard to conceive. I know you're eager to see a grandchild, and I'm sorry." "I'm sorry too. Don't stress too much about it. What I wish for the most is for Aiden and you to live happily." I had assumed they were prioritizing their careers over having children. To Grace, who was feeling anxious about not being able to conceive, what had I done by asking her that? For a while, I was tormented by self-loathing. Perhaps out of consideration for me, Grace invited me to lunch again as if nothing had happened.
"When I do get pregnant, you'll be the first to know."
Grace said this with a bright smile. Grace is much more grown up than I am. Since then, I never brought up the topic of children with Aiden or Grace again. One day, I got a call from Grace.
"Emily, there's a new craft store in the next town over. Do you want to go check it out with me?"
Thanks for the invite. I'd love to go. The next day, we headed to the new craft store. Can we stop by the department store too? I'm thinking of buying Aiden's birthday present. Oh right, Aiden's birthday is the day after tomorrow. It's so nice of her to prepare a birthday present for Aiden. He's lucky. Hearing Grace's words, I decided to buy something for Aiden as well. After we both bought presents for Aiden, we were hungry, so we went to a cafe. While eating cake, Grace had a bright idea.
"How about we throw a surprise party for Aiden's birthday, if it's convenient for you and Lucas?"
That sounds great. Let's do it at our house. I'm free during the day, so I can prepare the food and everything.
"Thank you. I'll get off work early and help with the preparations."
Thinking back, even though I've sent Aiden birthday texts since he moved out, we haven't celebrated in person in over 10 years. Just the thought of a surprise party was exciting. Aiden really married someone wonderful. And thank you, Grace, for caring so much for Aiden. I watched Grace innocently enjoying her cake with a smile. By the way, Aiden has been busy with work lately and coming home late.
"Is that so? Will he be able to come home early the day after tomorrow?"
We were worried. I'll ask him subtly, so he doesn't suspect anything.
"Thanks. Let me know if you need anything, Grace. You're busy too."
After that, we went shopping for party supplies like wine and food, and then parted ways. 2 days flew by, and today is Aiden's birthday. I sent Aiden a happy birthday message in the morning. According to Grace, he shouldn't be too late today, so I started preparing for the party right away.
"Lucas, we're having Aiden's birthday party today, so come home early, okay?"
You're really going all out, aren't you? Lucas laughed, looking at the garlands I was arranging on the table for decoration.
"Well, it's been over 10 years since we've had a party for Aiden's birthday."
Are you making the cake, Emily?
"That's the plan."
I can't wait. Aiden loves your cakes. With that, Lucas left for work. Aiden, who doesn't like whipped cream, always had my homemade cheesecake. He was always so happy when I decorated the cake with icing cookies of his favorite character, bringing back those memories. Today, I have to make sure we give him a big surprise. I'm getting really excited. I checked my phone from time to time while preparing, but there was no reply from Aiden. I wonder if he's that busy with work. Even though I was worried, I continued with the food preparations. Around 4 p.m., Grace arrived at our house.
Sorry I'm late. Wow, it smells great. Do you think so? Isn't it a bit childish?
On top of the baked cheesecake, I had decorated it with icing cookies of a character Aiden used to love. Grace looked at the cake and smiled.
Aiden still has this character's figure on display. He'll absolutely love this. Really? Hasn't grown up at all, has he?
With that, we laughed.
Let's get everything ready at once.
We split up the tasks, some of us cooking and others decorating the room. By 6 p.m., Lucas came home. In Lucas's hand was a paper bag tied with a ribbon.
Lucas prepared a gift, too.
I'd feel left out if I didn't.
I hope Aiden gets back soon.
I sent Aiden a message, but no reply yet. He must be rushing to finish up work. Everything was ready. All that was left was waiting for the guest of honor. The three of us watched TV and chatted while waiting for Aiden to return. But no matter how long we waited, Aiden didn't come back.
It's already 8 p.m. I'll give him a call.
Grace tried calling, but Aiden didn't answer the phone. However, Aiden called back shortly after. Talking to Aiden, Grace's face suddenly turned gloomy. After hanging up, Grace let out a big sigh and said, "I'm sorry. Aiden has to stay at the office tonight."
What?
It was such a surprise that he had to stay at the office on this particular day. "I'm sorry. After you all prepared so much." Grace looked down apologetically. Seeing Grace like this, Lucas cleared his throat and said, "It's his job, can't be helped. He's 29 now, entrusted with responsible tasks."
You're right. I'm glad he's grown into such a respectable adult. Let's reschedule the party. You must be hungry, right? Let's eat.
Though it was disappointing that the guest of honor wasn't there, the three of us still enjoyed the delicious food and cake, having a reasonably good time. My gaze drifted to the three presents lying on the sofa. "I want to give Aiden his birthday presents. You free on the weekend?"
Sometimes I have to work on Saturdays, but Sundays are always off for me. Let me ask.
Grace texted Aiden, and a reply came quickly.
Aiden says Sunday seems fine. Told them it's a surprise, so we're going out for a meal with the four of us.
Thank you. Let's celebrate grandly this time. I can picture Aiden's embarrassed face when he receives his present. I know a place with a great atmosphere where I went with my colleagues. I'll book it.
Thank you.
I couldn't wait for next Sunday. And then, the Sunday of the birthday party redo. At 10 a.m., Aiden and Grace came to pick us up. Is it okay if we stop by a department store near the restaurant? There's something I want to buy.
Our reservation is at 12 p.m., so let's go to the department store first.
So, we decided to stop by the department store before our meal.
Oh, if it isn't Emily.
While looking at craft supplies, someone called out from behind. Turning around, there stood Amelia, a friend from high school. Smiling with a little boy holding her hand.
Amelia, long time no see. Is this your grandson?
Yes. This energetic little guy is Oliver, he's 3. Amelia squinted her eyes and gently patted her grandson's head. Emily, your grandson is in the same childcare center as Oliver, right?
Aw. we don't have any grandchildren yet.
I hoped Amelia would drop the subject of grandchildren, not wanting Grace to feel uncomfortable.
Wait, but that's your son, right?
Amelia pointed at Aiden. Yes. This is our son Aiden, and this is his wife Grace. And this is my husband Lucas. Everyone nodded to Amelia, but her gaze stayed on Aiden.
You're picking up from Sunny Day's childcare, aren't you?
Amelia spoke to Aiden with a serious face. Aiden looked puzzled.
Could it be a mistake? Aiden and Grace don't have any children yet.
I tried to reason with Amelia, but she shook her head.
Sometimes they come to pick up Mia, right? My Oliver, he adores Mia, talks about her all the time at home.
Who's Mia? Looking at Aiden, he began to tremble, looking down. Lucas and Grace also watched Aiden and Amelia with a puzzled look.
Grandma, I need to go to the bathroom.
Oh, we better hurry then.
See you later.
Pulled by Oliver, Amelia ran off towards the bathroom. A tense silence fell over us who were left behind.
What's going on?
Grace murmured at Aiden with a voice lower than I've ever heard, glaring at him. Aiden, still looking down, said nothing. Lucas took out his phone and started making a call. I'm sorry, due to some circumstances, we have to cancel. We will definitely pay the cancellation fee later. Lucas apologized repeatedly and hung up the phone.
Make sure to pay the cancellation fee to the store,
Lucas said to Aiden and started walking. I followed behind Lucas, then Grace, and Aiden trailed behind us, keeping his distance. We returned home in silence, and everyone but Aiden sat on the couch. Aiden just stood near the living room door.
Aiden, explain yourself.
Lucas's deep and firm voice filled the room. Aiden remained silent, looking down. Lucas stood in front of Aiden.
Hand over your mobile phone now.
Aiden stared at Lucas's outstretched hand.
Hurry.
Overwhelmed by Lucas's presence, Aiden, with tears in his eyes, handed over his mobile phone. Lucas fiddled with Aiden's mobile phone for a while, sighed deeply, and for a moment, turned a pained expression our way. Lucas, let me see too. With a resolved look, Grace approached Lucas and extended her hand. I'm sorry. With those words, Lucas handed Aiden's mobile phone to her. Grace kept fiddling with his mobile phone, expressionless. Then, still without showing any emotion, tears started to roll down Grace's cheeks. Seeing those tears made both Lucas and I feel terribly uncomfortable.
Who is this Harper woman exactly? Explain it with your own words.
Finally, Aiden, who had been silent all along, began to speak.
What Mom's friend said is true.
And what about this Mia?
She's my child with Harper.
The moment Aiden's words were spoken, Grace burst into tears. I hugged Grace, rubbing her back while glaring at Aiden.
How old is this Mia? How long have you been cheating?
Lucas bombarded Aiden with one question after another, causing him to hang his head in shame. According to Aiden, Harper, the woman he cheated with, is a 25-year-old office worker and a college friend. He had been involved with Harper before meeting Grace, and the relationship continued even after he started dating Grace. It seems he thought about stopping the affair once he got married, but that's when Harper's pregnancy came to light. Harper had told him there was no need to marry, but then demanded hospital fees, and after the child was born, she started calling him over to take care of the child. From what was said, it seemed like Aiden was just being conveniently used by Harper, but creating a child with an affair partner in the first place is utterly inexcusable. I also felt responsible for raising Aiden to end up in such a situation. The money you've been giving Harper, it's coming from my savings, isn't it? Grace muttered.
Is that true?
Aiden, under Grace's stern gaze, nodded guiltily. creating a child with an affair partner and then stealing Grace's money to give to her. This reality, far beyond imagination, almost made me collapse.
So, the reason you've been coming home late recently is because you've been busy with that other family?
Aiden didn't deny Grace's words.
Recently, Harper has been coming home late, and I've been asked to pick up Mia.
Since Harper started working full-time this year, I've been picking up Mia more often as a substitute.
During your last birthday, you were with this family, weren't you?
Sorry. Aiden apologized, but we couldn't possibly forgive him for that. Lucas furiously threw the birthday present into the trash can.
From now on, stay away from us. Get out of here.
Oh no. Both Lucas and I, along with Grace, quietly endured until Aiden left. After a while, Aiden said, "I'm really sorry," and left. As soon as the front door closed, I stood up and deeply apologized to Grace. Lucas came right next to me and apologized in the same way.
I'm really sorry for the foolish thing Aiden did. It's not your fault, Lucas and Emily. Rather, thank you for being with me. If I had been alone when I found out about this, I think I would have broken down.
Grace's words pierced my heart.
You're going to divorce Aiden, aren't you?
Yes, I will divorce him. Grace looked into our eyes and answered clearly. We firmly accepted her answer.
I know a great lawyer. I'll introduce you to him, so make sure to claim your compensation in the divorce proceedings.
Grace was surprised by Lucas's words.
Grace, even if you divorce Aiden, we'll always consider you our daughter. Please rely on us if you need anything.
Hearing my words, Grace's eyes filled with tears and she said,
Lucas, Emily, I was able to have a wonderful time because I met you too. Thank you.
Grace's life changed drastically in just a few hours, but we solemnly vowed to continue watching over her. Grace promptly started the divorce proceedings with the lawyer Lucas introduced. In the divorce settlement, in addition to the alimony, it was agreed that Aiden would pay Grace $30,000, combining this with the money Aiden had unilaterally spent from Grace's savings. Furthermore, initially, Grace did not intend to claim any settlement money from Harper, who was in the midst of parenting, but eventually decided to claim $10,000.
Did something happen?
Because the child is innocent, I thought it would be better for him to spend the money on the child rather than pay me. But then she claimed that she, being the mother of the child, was the rightful wife.
It seems Grace's anger finally erupted at Harper, who showed no remorse.
I didn't hesitate to claim it.
To think that Aiden had an affair with such a person. Grace felt anew that forgiving Aiden was indeed impossible. Thanks to her lawyer, Grace was able to smoothly receive the settlement money from both Aiden and Harper, and then proceed with the divorce. Aiden chose to live with Harper and Mia, while Grace moved to a different place.
Come visit us anytime. We think of you as our daughter.
On the day before the move, I conveyed this to Grace, who had come to say goodbye.
Thank you so much for everything. I'll be in touch.
Grace was a bit nervous, but she showed her best smile at the end. I figured the promise to contact us was probably just a polite formality. That's what I thought somehow. It's understandable. Even if she doesn't hate us, seeing us would unavoidably remind her of Aiden, who betrayed her.
Even if we can't see you anymore, we will always wish for your happiness.
I whispered quietly as I watched Grace's retreating figure. And then a year later. I haven't been in contact with Aiden, whom I disowned, but rumors say he officially married Harper half a year ago. However, as soon as they married, Harper quit her job without consulting anyone and became a housewife. Moreover, with Harper's spending habits controlling the finances, they were forced into a poor lifestyle, and it seems their marital relationship is already at its worst. Despite hearing such stories, I felt no sympathy for Aiden. More importantly,
Should be arriving soon, right?
calm down a bit, Emily.
Even Lucas has been glancing at the clock nonstop.
At that moment, the doorbell rang. Hello. We headed to the entrance, maintaining our composure. There stood Grace.
Happy birthday, Grace.
Thank you. Something smells good. Grace laughed. Today is Grace's birthday. She came over after we invited her for a party. The words Grace had said a year ago weren't just pleasantries after all. A while later, Grace contacted us saying, "Shall we go buy some crafting supplies?" Grace continued to treat Lucas and me as before, which was a relief to us, and Lucas was happy to have a daughter in place of a son.
I made your favorite tiramisu. I can't wait to eat it.
Grace cheered.
Grace, if you'd like, here's this for you.
Lucas handed Grace a small bag.
What is it? Let me open it. Wow, how cute!
Grace cheered again. Out of the bag came a pink bear plushie.
Did Lucas make this?
Lucas nodded, somewhat embarrassed. Actually, a month ago, Lucas came to me with my crafting book and asked,
Think I can make this?
Without him saying anything, I knew it was meant to be a gift for Grace. For a month, with my advice, Lucas crafted this pink bear plushie. The differing sizes of the ears on either side made it all the more endearing.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy.
Seeing Grace's gentle smile, both Lucas and I felt incredibly happy.
The day my father destroyed my career in art curation, I learned that standing up for what's right comes with a devastating price. I sat frozen in his expansive corner office at the Thompson Gallery Group headquarters, watching him methodically delete my credentials from the company database. Each click of his mouse felt like a nail in the coffin of my professional future. My name is Emily Thompson, and until that moment, I'd spent 28 years trying to be the perfect daughter to one of New York's most powerful art dealers. But perfect wasn't enough anymore. You're choosing to throw away everything I've built. Dad's voice cut through the silence, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. The late afternoon sun cast harsh shadows across his mahogany desk, highlighting the growing collection of contemporary art catalogs I'd curated, now just painful reminders of what I was about to lose. Sarah's got talent, but she's naive. The market isn't ready for her kind of social commentary. Her work deserves to be seen, I said, my voice steadier than my trembling hands. What you're doing, systematically excluding emerging artists who don't fit your commercial mold. It's everything wrong with the modern art world. Wrong? He swiveled in his chair, his practiced gallery owner smile turning cold. I've built an empire by knowing what sells. Sarah's accusations about Jason stealing her concepts. Do you know what that kind of scandal could do to our reputation? Because he did steal them. The words burst out before I could stop them. I saw her original digital portfolios months before he suddenly developed the same artistic direction. I have the timestamps, Dad. The online galleries where she first posted them. Mom appeared in the doorway, her Chanel suit a perfect match for the sterile corporate environment. Emily, honey, please. Your father knows the art market better than anyone. Does he? I turned to face her, my curator's ID badge suddenly heavy around my neck. Or does he just prefer to believe Jason because he's your son and fits his idea of a proper artist? Dad's face darkened to that dangerous shade I'd learned to fear since childhood. Get out. If you want to throw your lot in with that social media activist masquerading as an artist, then you're no daughter of mine. Turn in your badge. As of now, you're fired. Robert, please, Mom whispered. But he silenced her with a look that had cowed gallery owners and artists alike. I stood, removing my badge with shaking fingers, but refusing to let him see me cry. Remember this moment, Dad. Remember how you chose your empire over the truth. Leaving the gallery, I walked out of that glass and steel monument to my father's ego with nothing but my phone and my art history degrees. My Instagram notifications were already blowing up. Jason had posted another original piece that looked suspiciously like Sarah's early work. My phone buzzed with a message from Maya. My spare room's yours if you need it. Already drafting the social media strategy for your comeback. Sarah's apartment. Evening. That night, I drove to Sarah's small studio apartment in Brooklyn. Street art covered the building's facade. A fitting home for an artist who refused to be silenced. She opened the door, her dark eyes red-rimmed from crying, paint still streaked across her vintage t-shirt. Emily, what are you doing here? I stood up for you, I said, holding up a bottle of wine I'd grabbed from the bodega downstairs. And now I need a drink. We settled on her paint-splattered couch, surrounded by canvases that told stories of resistance and rebirth. Her latest series, digital prints merged with traditional paintings, covered every wall. The same series Jason had somehow coincidentally echoed in his latest gallery showing, launching his career while sabotaging hers. I never asked you to sacrifice everything, Sarah said, pouring cheap Cabernet into coffee mugs. A far cry from the crystal glasses at Dad's gallery openings. Her laptop sat open on the coffee table, displaying her latest Instagram post, a mere 200 likes compared to Jason's 50,000. You didn't have to. I took a long sip, scrolling through the comments on her work. I'm tired of watching him destroy authentic voices just because they don't fit his algorithm for success. What will you do now? I gestured to her latest piece, a phoenix rising from a sea of broken screens and social media icons, its wings spread wide against a blood-red sky. We're going to take everything back. Your art, my reputation, all of it. We? Yes, we. I've got my curator experience. You've got the talent. Let's start our own digital gallery platform. Sarah laughed, but it was a bitter sound. Your father blacklisted me from every major online art space. Jason's got all the influencer connections. Watch me. I pulled out my phone and dialed Maya's number. Hey, remember that empty storefront your uncle was trying to rent? The one with the perfect lighting for live streaming? Maya's voice crackled through the speaker. Yeah, why? Because I'm about to do something either really brave or really stupid. I looked at Sarah. Want to help me prove the old guard wrong? A slow smile spread across Sarah's face as she closed her laptop. You're serious about this? Dead serious. I raised my coffee mug of wine. To new beginnings and digital disruption. Late night planning, Emily. Sarah hesitated, wiping paint from her hands. What if we fail? Then we fail on our own terms, not his. I stood up, feeling more alive than I had in years. But we're not going to fail. We're going to build something so innovative that one day he'll have to look at what we've created and know that everything he believed about marketable art was wrong. Messages and midnight. My phone lit up with a text from Mom. Please come back to the gallery. Your father will reconsider. We can fix this. I typed back while watching Sarah sketch preliminary designs for our website. Nothing to fix. I'm exactly where I need to be. Then I blocked both my parents' numbers and turned to Sarah. Tomorrow we start building our platform. Tonight, we celebrate our independence. We stayed up until dawn, fueled by wine and takeout dumplings from the 24-hour place around the corner. Sarah showed me her entire digital portfolio, pieces that had been buried by Jason's aggressive SEO tactics and my father's influence over online gallery spaces. With each hour that passed, the weight of my father's rejection felt less like a burden and more like freedom. Dawn breaking. As the sun rose over Brooklyn's industrial skyline, I stood at Sarah's paint-spattered window, watching delivery trucks start their morning routes. You know what the best revenge will be? I said, scrolling through Maya's preliminary marketing strategy on my tablet. What? Success. Pure, undeniable, viral success. And when we achieve it, we won't owe him or his outdated gallery system a single thing. Little did I know then just how sweet that revenge would taste, or how high the price of disrupting the art world would be. But standing there in that moment, watching Sarah upload her first uncensored portfolio to our new Instagram account, I felt something I hadn't experienced since my first day as a curator: hope. 3 months later, the studio. 3 months into our venture, and our hybrid gallery space looked more like a tech startup than a traditional art showcase. Mia sat cross-legged on our only real furniture, a second-hand Eames chair she'd scored from a closing gallery, watching me adjust ring lights, while Sarah arranged her latest mixed-media pieces against the exposed brick wall. You know, Maya said, analyzing our latest engagement metrics, most people would have given up by now. Your follower count is growing, but we're still shadow banned on most platforms. I wiped sweat from my forehead, adjusting the camera angle for our upcoming live stream. Most people haven't met my father or his SEO team. The bell above the door chimed. We'd kept that one traditional touch, and a woman in Louboutins clicked across our unfinished concrete floor, her eyes fixed on her phone. Is this the gallery that's been causing such a stir on ArtNet? She looked up, revealing a face I recognized from countless Art World panels. I'm Margaret Chen from the Downtown Arts Coalition. It will be, I said, climbing down from the ladder. I'm Emily Thompson, and this is Sarah Miller, our featured artist. Gallery introduction. Margaret's eyes swept over Sarah's latest installation, a piece combining traditional oils with projected social media feeds, showing a woman breaking free from chains made of viral hashtags and golden verification marks. Interesting. Very raw, she mused, taking photos with her phone. But I've never seen either of you on the major gallery circuits. That's about to change, Sarah said, her voice stronger than I'd heard it in months. The constant harassment in her Instagram DMs had almost silenced her, but now she was standing tall. The Downtown Arts Coalition is hosting an NFT-integrated exhibition next month. Margaret handed me her business card. Normally, we only invite established galleries, but she gestured to Sarah's piece, which she'd been documenting on her phone. How much? 3,000, I said without hesitation. ignoring Sarah's sharp intake of breath. We had priced it high intentionally. In this world, price often equaled legitimacy. Margaret raised an eyebrow, checking our gallery's social media presence on her phone. For an unknown artist, for a masterpiece. I met her gaze steadily. Look at how she integrates traditional techniques with digital elements. That's not just art. It's commentary on the very system that tried to silence her. She studied the piece for another long moment, the glow of her phone illuminating her thoughtful expression. 2,500, and I want exclusive rights to debut it on our platform. Done? She pulled out her phone to arrange the transfer. And I'll add you to the exhibition roster. Don't make me regret this. Celebration time. After she left, Sarah grabbed my arms, her paint-stained fingers leaving marks on my blazer. Are you insane? That piece wasn't even finished. It is now. I grinned, showing her Margaret's social media post about us already gaining traction. We just made our first legitimate sale. Maya clapped, already updating our analytics dashboard. This calls for celebration. I'm ordering pizza and posting this milestone. Later that evening, surrounded by empty pizza boxes and laptops displaying our growing online presence, Maya helped us crunch numbers. Okay, with Margaret's payment and our growing Patreon support, you can cover this month's rent and still have enough for upgraded streaming equipment. Evening strategy session. Barely, I muttered, looking at our dwindling startup fund. Our streaming equipment costs were eating into our reserves faster than anticipated. You need more publicity, Maya said, pulling up our analytics dashboard. I know this art tech blogger who— No, Sarah interrupted, her hands trembling slightly. No more publicity right now. What if Jason sees it and tries to copy this series too? Let him see it, I said, my voice hard with determination. Let them all see it. Maya, call your blogger friend. It's time to make some noise they can't silence. Gallery opening week. The next week passed in a blur of preparations. We worked 18-hour days, transforming the space into something that almost resembled a professional hybrid gallery. Almost. Between setting up the live streaming equipment and arranging Sarah's physical pieces, we barely slept. On opening night, exactly 6 people showed up in person. 1 was Maya, 2 were her parents, and the others were tourists looking for directions to a nearby coffee shop. Our live stream, however, had a modest but engaged 50 viewers. Well, this physical turnout is depressing, Maya said, munching on cheap cheese cubes while monitoring the stream chat. It's just the beginning, I insisted, but my voice wavered as I watched our viewer count fluctuate. Then the door opened, and my mother walked in, looking out of place in her designer outfit among our industrial chic decor. Mom, she looked around nervously, clutching her Prada bag. Your father doesn't know I'm here. Of course he doesn't. I crossed my arms, feeling the weight of my gallery owner ID card, this time one I'd printed myself. Why are you? Because. She pulled an envelope from her purse. Because I saved this from your trust fund before he froze it. Inside was a check for $5,000. I tried to hand it back. I can't. Please. Her voice cracked. Let me do this one thing right. I've seen what he's been doing to your online presence. Unexpected visitors. Before I could respond, the door chimed again. This time it was the tech blogger Maya had contacted, accompanied by a professional live streaming crew. Perfect timing, Maya called out, already in PR mode. Sarah, show them your latest transmedia series. As Sarah led them through the gallery, explaining how each piece bridged the digital-physical divide, Mom squeezed my hand. You've built something revolutionary here. It's not enough, I whispered, watching our viewer count. Not yet. It will be. She kissed my cheek. I have to go, but Emily, she paused at the door. I'm proud of you. Digital breakthrough. 2 days later, the blog post went live, accompanied by a viral TikTok that captured Sarah's interactive art pieces. By that evening, our phones wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications. The next morning, 3 pieces sold through our digital platform before noon. Holy, Maya said, refreshing our analytics dashboard. The post went viral. We're trending in the art tech space. Sarah burst through the door, her tablet displaying endless social media alerts. Have you seen the comments? They actually get it. They understand what we're trying to say. I was about to respond when a new email popped up. My hands shook as I read it. What? Faith and Sarah asked simultaneously. The new museum's digital art initiative. I looked up, barely breathing. They want to feature Sarah's Breaking Free series in their Emerging Artist Showcase next month. Full virtual and physical exhibition. Sarah collapsed into our single designer chair. That's impossible. Your father's connections. That's karma, Maya said, already drafting social media announcements. And genuine talent beating artificial hype. I printed the email and pinned it to our inspiration wall, right next to screenshots of our first online sale. No, that's just the beginning. Now let's make them remember our names in both physical and digital spaces. Momentum building. The universe, it seemed, had finally decided to deal us a winning hand in both the traditional and digital art worlds. We just had to be brave enough to play it across all platforms. 2 years later, magazine feature, Breaking Barriers. The unstoppable rise of digital traditional artist Sarah Miller. I stared at the Artforum digital cover on my tablet, still unable to believe it was real. The photo showed Sarah in our now thriving hybrid gallery space, surrounded by her latest mixed media installations, each piece seamlessly blending physical art with augmented reality elements. They actually credited me properly, Sarah whispered, touching her tablet screen. Not just my work, but my entire artistic vision. 2 years had transformed our shabby storefront into one of New York's most talked about experimental art spaces. The exposed brick walls now hosted pieces that regularly sold for 5 figures, each installation drawing both physical visitors and virtual audiences worldwide through our custom streaming platform. Maya burst through the door, balancing her laptop with one hand and a carrier of artisanal coffee in the other. Have you seen our wait list for virtual commissions? The queue for our installations is insane. I can't keep up with the demand, Sarah admitted, running her fingers through her paint-streaked hair. Maybe we should consider confrontation. The gallery door chimed. A familiar voice made my blood freeze. Quite an innovative space you've built here, Emily. I turned slowly. Dad. He stood there in his perfectly tailored suit, looking exactly as he had the day he'd fired me. Beside him, Jason shifted uncomfortably, his phone conspicuously dark for once. What do you want? I asked, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Can't a father visit his successful daughter? He spread his arms wide, taking in our hybrid exhibition space. I've been following your metrics. Very impressive engagement numbers, really. Sarah stepped forward, her tablet displaying side by side comparisons of her original works and Jason's inspired pieces. Because last I checked, you were still telling everyone I was a digital art fraud. Jason at least had the decency to look ashamed. Listen about those posts. Save it. I cut him off. Unless you're here to buy something or book a virtual tour, we're actually quite busy. The proposal, actually, Dad smiled his practiced gallerist smile. I'm here to discuss an opportunity. The Thompson Gallery Group is launching a digital art initiative. We'd like to feature your hybrid gallery as our flagship partner. Maya snorted, not looking up from her analytics dashboard. You mean now that they've proven disruptive technology can't be ignored, you want a piece of the algorithm? This could be beneficial for everyone, Dad continued, ignoring her. Think of the exposure, the established collector network, like the networks you used to shadow ban me? Sarah's voice shook, her tablet displaying screenshots of old takedown notices. To make sure no legitimate platform would touch my digital art. The past is the past, Dad waved dismissively. I'm offering you legitimacy in the traditional space. I laughed, and it wasn't a happy sound. Legitimacy? We built that ourselves while you were busy trying to delete us from the art world's algorithm. Be reasonable, Emily. This merger could. No. I walked to the door and held it open, our digital visitor counter ticking up, even as I prepared to remove 2 physical ones. We earned every bit of this success, despite your platform manipulation, not because of it. Now get out. You're making a mistake, he warned. The only mistake I made was spending 28 years trying to earn your approval instead of building something authentic. After they left, Maya let out a low whistle. That was better than any reality show live stream. Warning signs. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. He's furious. His team is planning something. Protect your platforms. I showed it to Sarah. We need to prepare. He won't let this digital disruption go unchallenged. Let him try something, Maya said, already typing on her tablet. I'm calling my contact at TouchCrunch. It's time people knew the whole story of art world gatekeeping. Exhibition preparations. The next few weeks were a blur of exhibition preparations and platform security updates. We worked around the clock, transforming both our physical gallery and virtual space into a testament to artistic resilience in the digital age. One evening, as we were setting up the augmented reality overlays for the final pieces, a young digital artist approached Sarah. Your hybrid work saved my career, she said quietly. I was about to give up after being blacklisted from traditional galleries, but your art installations showed me a new way forward. Sarah hugged her, both of them crying, while the girl's own digital art flickered beautifully on her tablet. I stepped away to give them privacy and found Maya monitoring our security protocols. You know what the best part is, she said. Every time your father tries to claim credit for the digital art revolution, there are hundreds of stories like that proving him wrong. Opening night. The opening night of the show was packed, both physically and virtually. Art critics, collectors, tech journalists, and thousands of online viewers filled our hybrid space. I spotted Mom in the crowd, trying to be inconspicuous while streaming the event on her phone. Ladies and gentlemen, both here and online, I address the room and our global audience, my voice carrying over the buzz of conversation and chat notifications. Tonight isn't just about art. It's about breaking down barriers between traditional and digital spaces, about standing up when the establishment tries to silence new voices. Sarah joined me at the podium, her latest art piece floating beautifully above us. Every piece in this collection tells a story of survival, of fighting back, of refusing to let others define your worth in any medium. The crowd erupted in applause as cameras flashed, and our stream exploded with supportive comments. I saw Dad watching from outside the gallery windows, his expression unreadable as he stared at our visitor counter, displaying both physical and virtual attendance numbers. Late night victory. Later that night, after the last physical guest left and our stream finally ended, we sat on the gallery floor, sharing champagne. "We did it," Sarah said, raising her glass. "We really did it." My phone buzzed with a news alert. The headline read, "Thompson Gallery Group under investigation for digital art market manipulation." Maya peered over my shoulder and grinned. Karma's a funny thing in the digital age, isn't it? I thought about Dad's face at the window, about all the years of dismissal and doubt. The best revenge isn't just success, I said. It's success that helps others find their voice in any medium they choose. We clinked our glasses together, celebrating not just our triumph, but the sweet taste of justice served in both physical and digital spaces. 3 years later, family wedding. The invitation to my cousin Sarah's wedding appeared in both my physical and digital mailbox. The elegant e-card animation, as threatening as its paper twin. 3 years had passed since I'd seen most of my family, and now here I was, staring at gold-embossed cardstock and a perfectly designed digital invitation that threatened to drag me back into their world. "You don't have to go," Maya said, perched on the edge of my desk, analyzing the wedding's social media presence. "Send a nice gift and a heartfelt Instagram story." I do, though. I picked up the physical invitation. Sarah stood by us when everyone else was mass unfollowing. Wedding day. The day of the wedding arrived with perfect June weather and knots in my stomach. I adjusted my designer dress, bought with proceeds from our latest virtual exhibition, because sometimes the best revenge is looking incredible in both real life and social media tags. "Emily," cousin Sarah rushed over, her wedding dress rustling. "You came. Wouldn't miss it." I hugged her carefully. "You look beautiful." "She does, doesn't she?" I turned to find Jason standing there, looking uncomfortable in his groomsman's tux, his ever-present phone notably absent. "Hello, Emily." "Jason." My voice could have frozen his next viral post. "I saw your gallery made the cover of Art Tech Monthly," he said, shifting his weight. "Sarah's hybrid work is. It's really something." "Yes, it is." "The same innovative approach you once claimed as your own in your inspired posts." Sarah touched my arm. "Please, not today." "Of course." I forced a smile. "Your day. Your rules." Reception tension. The ceremony was beautiful, but I felt eyes and smartphone cameras on me throughout. Whispers, stares, judgment. During the reception, I kept to the edges of the room until Mom found me. "You look stunning," she said, touching my hair. The gallery's digital presence is incredible, you know. It is. I see you liking all our posts. She glanced around nervously. Your father's business. It's not good, Emily. The investigation into platform manipulation is his own doing. I sipped my champagne. He made his choices. He wants to talk to you about a digital partnership. No. I set my glass down harder than intended. I'm not his backup plan for entering the modern art world. Confrontation at the reception. Emily. Dad's voice behind me made me stiffen. We need to discuss this like adults. I turned to face him. He looked older, tired. The investigation into his digital market manipulation was clearly taking its toll. There's nothing to discuss, I said, watching the wedding guests discreetly filming with their phones. Your platform is dying, and you want my gallery's digital innovation to save it. The answer is no. You ungrateful, he caught himself, aware of nearby guests and potential social media exposure. Everything I did was for this family's legacy in the art world. No, everything you did was for your ego. I stepped closer. You protected Jason when he stole Sarah's digital concepts. You blacklisted her work across platforms. You tried to erase our online presence when I stood up to you. And now that we've succeeded despite your algorithmic warfare, you want to pretend it was all part of your grand digital strategy? The Thompson Gallery Network is your heritage, he hissed. Your birthright. My birthright? I laughed. You made it very clear what you thought of my birthright when you deleted my credentials and tried to bury our gallery in search results. Family confrontation. A small crowd had gathered, phones poorly concealed. Mom touched Dad's arm. Not here, Robert. Listen to your daughter, came a new voice. Sarah stood there in a stunning red dress, Maya beside her with our latest engagement metrics ready. She built something beautiful from your attempts to silence us. Don't try to take credit for it now. Dad's face darkened. You weren't invited. I invited them. Cousin Sarah stepped forward. Because they're family too, Uncle Robert. The family you tried to erase from the digital art world. The silence was deafening. Dad looked around at the watching faces and their ready phones, then straightened his tie. This isn't over. Yes, it is. I took Sarah's arm. Congratulations, Sarah. I'm sorry we disrupted your day. Unexpected confession. As we turned to leave, Jason called out, Sarah, wait. He rushed forward, pulling up something on his tablet. I just posted a public confession about your artwork. A full thread admitting everything. It's yours if you want it. Sarah took the tablet with trembling hands. Why now? Because I'm tired of faking engagement and stealing concepts. He looked at Dad. We all are. Outside the wedding venue. Outside in the warm evening air, Maya whistled low. Well, that was more viral worthy than any staged gallery opening. Are you okay? I asked Sarah, who was still scrolling through Jason's confession thread, watching the retweets multiply. I don't know, she smiled slightly, but I think I will be. The comments are overwhelmingly supportive. My phone buzzed, a text from Cousin Sarah. Thank you for coming and for showing me what real artistic integrity looks like. I looked at Sarah and Maya, my chosen family, then back at the wedding venue where my blood family was dealing with the aftermath of digital truth. Let's go home, I said. We have a gallery to run and a new art world to build. Driving away. As we drove away, Sarah checked our latest platform metrics on her tablet. I caught a glimpse of Dad watching from the venue steps, his phone dark in his hand for once. For the first time, I felt no anger, no desire for revenge, just pity for a man who'd built his empire on artificial engagement and was watching it crumble under the weight of authentic connection. The best revenge, after all, wasn't just success. It was finding peace despite those who tried to silence your voice across every platform. Crisis alert. What do you mean someone hacked our cloud storage? I gripped my phone tighter, pacing the gallery floor as our screens flickered with warning messages. How is that possible? Maya typed frantically on her laptop. They're trying to corrupt our entire digital archive. The transfer logs show activity at 3 o'clock. Nearly everything in our virtual gallery is being targeted. Sarah burst through the door, face pale. The NFT certificates for the Miami show. Someone's trying to invalidate them. They've launched a massive denial of service attack against our platform. I didn't need to ask who. Only one person had enough spite and resources to orchestrate this level of digital warfare. Your father's getting desperate, Maya said, still coding defensive measures. The market manipulation investigation must be worse than we thought. Emergency response. My phone rang. Mom's number. I answered on speaker while watching Maya deploy our backup servers. Emily, please listen, she said, her voice shaking. He's not thinking clearly. The tech fraud investigators are closing in, and he's trying to crash everything. Again, I finished. Let me guess, he said if I just agreed to the merger. Stop defending him. The words exploded out of me. He's trying to destroy our entire platform, Mom. That's what your husband does. He destroys what he can't control and calls it business strategy. Legal notice. The gallery door chimed. A courier handed me a tablet to sign. Legal documents delivered electronically and in hard copy. As I read, my hands started shaking. What is it? Sarah asked, still working to protect our digital archives. He's suing us, claiming we built our success using proprietary algorithms from his gallery group. I threw the papers down. He's trying to take the gallery, both physical and virtual spaces. Maya stood up from her battle station. Not if we take him down first. Remember that confession Jason posted? Sarah pulled up the viral thread on her tablet. You think? I think it's time to stop playing defense. Maya grabbed her phone. I'm calling every tech journalist I know. Anonymous tip. The next few hours were chaos. Our lawyer arrived, followed by cybersecurity experts taking statements about the hack attempts. Tech reporters started calling. Social media exploded. Then my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Cloud backup location. NURT 247. Encryption key 1983. What you need is there. Jason, I breathed. Maya, can you access it? Evidence discovery. The backup server was hidden in a secure cloud location. When we accessed it, we found terabytes of data, years of digital records from the Thompson Gallery Group. Holy, Maya whispered, scanning through the files. This is everything. Every manipulated review, every artificial engagement boost, including what he did to Sarah's early work, I asked. Especially that. She pulled up a folder. Emails proving he orchestrated her shadow banning and threatened platforms that tried to host her work. Gallery, Crisis Command Center. Back at the gallery, we found Sarah talking to a cybersecurity detective. "The trace worked," she said. "They've isolated the attack vectors and are freezing all unauthorized access. We've got something better." I connected Jason's drive to our main display. Dad's entire digital house of cards. The call. My phone rang again. Dad this time. I answered on speaker. "You think you're clever," he snarled, "playing with systems you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I replied, watching Maya back up the evidence to secure servers. "You're going down, and you're trying to corrupt our data along with yours. But guess what? We have proof of everything. You wouldn't dare watch me." I hung up. Night of truth. That night, we worked with tech journalists, cybersecurity experts, and investigators, systematically laying out the evidence. By morning, it was everywhere: social media, tech blogs, art news sites, mainstream platforms. Thompson Gallery Group CEO accused of systematic digital art market manipulation and artist suppression. Aftermath. Mom showed up around noon, looking exhausted. "They've arrested him," she said quietly. "The cyber crimes unit came this morning." "Mom," I started, but she held up her hand. "No, let me finish. I've spent years watching him destroy careers, manipulate platforms, hurt you. I'm done." She pulled out a USB drive. "This has everything from his private servers, bot networks, engagement manipulation scripts, everything." Sarah gasped. "Call me Madison." She straightened her shoulders. It's time I chose the right side. Moving forward, as she left, Maya looked at her watch. "The Miami Digital Art Fair opens in 3 days. What do you want to do?" I looked at Sarah. "What do you think?" She walked to her latest hybrid installation, a phoenix rising from a sea of corrupted data, more powerful than ever. "I think we show them exactly who we are." "Then let's do it right." I picked up my phone. "Cousin Sarah, remember how you said you wanted to help? How fast can you get to Miami?" The following days. The next few days were a blur of platform security upgrades, press statements, and legal meetings. But standing in the Miami exhibition space on opening night, watching Sarah's hybrid art installations shine while Dad's digital empire crumbled on every news feed, I felt something shift inside me. To Karma, Maya raised her champagne glass, her tablet showing our soaring engagement metrics. To family, Mom added, joining our circle. To authenticity, Sarah said. Reflection. I looked around at these strong women who'd stood by me, who'd helped turn revenge into digital revolution. To all of it, I said, and to whatever comes next. Because sometimes the sweetest victory isn't in watching your enemies' platforms crash. It's in building something so innovative they can't touch you anymore. Courthouse steps. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters and live streamers when Dad was let out in handcuffs. I watched from across the street, sipping coffee with Maya and Sarah while monitoring the live coverage on our tablets. 15 years, Maya read from the verdict notification. Plus full restitution to all artists affected by market manipulation. Look at him, Sarah whispered. He still thinks he's untouchable, even in Prison Orange. Dad walked with his head high, ignoring questions, until one reporter shouted, "Mr. Thompson, any comment on your daughter's testimony about digital art suppression?" He stopped dead. His eyes found me across the street, and for a moment I saw raw hatred there. "You did this," he shouted. "My own blood." Officers pulled him toward the waiting van. I raised my coffee cup in a mock toast, watching our gallery's visitor counter tick steadily upward on my phone. Media frenzy. "Miss Thompson." Reporters swarmed toward us, phones and cameras extended. "How does it feel to expose the largest art market manipulation scheme in the digital age?" No comment. Maya stepped between us. "My client is focusing on our gallery's upcoming international virtual expansion." Gallery. Later, back at the gallery, I found Mom waiting. She looked smaller somehow, older, her tablet clutched tightly in her hands. "The penthouse is being seized," she said without preamble. "All the digital assets are frozen." "You can stay with me," I offered. She shook her head. "Cousin Sarah's offered her guest house. I need time to figure out who I am without his influence." "Mom?" Hidden truth. "But first," she pulled out a thick folder and her tablet. "There's something you should see." Inside were photos and archived posts, dozens of them. Me winning digital art curation awards, screenshots of my early gallery reviews, backups of my first virtual exhibition designs. He kept these in his secure cloud storage, Mom said. Along with this, she showed me a digital document, dated the day he fired me. It was a draft of a succession plan, preparing to hand me control of the gallery's digital transformation. "He was proud of you," she said softly. "He just couldn't bear that you succeeded without his platform." "That's not pride." I closed the document. "That's control." Unexpected visit. The gallery door chimed. Jason walked in, looking nervous, his phone conspicuously absent for once. "Before you block me," he said quickly, "I need to say something." Sarah emerged from her studio, paint and pixels swirling around her latest art piece. "I'm sorry," he continued, "to both of you. I was a coward, and I let him turn me into someone who betrayed the very essence of digital art." "Why help us now?" I asked. "Because watching you two build something authentic, something truly innovative," he shrugged. "It made me realize what I threw away. New beginnings. If you're looking for forgiveness." Sarah started, her R installation flickering behind her. "I'm not. I'm looking to make amends." He pulled up his portfolio on his tablet. "I'm teaching digital art at the youth center now. These kids, they remind me of us before everything went wrong. They need mentors in the hybrid art space." Maya, who'd been unusually quiet, monitoring our platforms, spoke up. "We were actually discussing a community outreach program." "We were?" I looked at her. "We are now," she grinned, pulling up a project template. "Think about it. Hybrid art classes for underprivileged youth, virtual gallery scholarships, mentoring programs, using Dad's restitution money to help young digital artists. That's more than poetic justice," I mused. "It's transformative. It's breaking the cycle," Sarah said, her latest R installation shimmering with new energy. Mom touched my arm. "This is who you've always been, Emily. Even as a child, you tried to bridge gaps and lift others up." Planning session. The next few hours were spent brainstorming. By evening, we had the framework for a foundation, a real one, built on empowering artists instead of controlling them. My phone buzzed with a message from Dad's legal team. He wants a virtual visit. Are you going to accept? Maya asked, reading over my shoulder. No, I put the phone away. I'm done letting him dictate my presence in any space. Good, Sarah said, because we have work to do. She unveiled her latest hybrid piece, a massive canvas merged with dynamic R elements, showing hands reaching up through corrupted code toward pure light. It's for the youth center, she explained, to show them there's always a path through the digital noise. Breaking news. Speaking of up, Maya interrupted, looking at our latest analytics. Have you seen today's numbers? The Miami hybrid exhibition metrics are insane. Because people love an underdog story, Jason said. No, I corrected him. Because people love authentic art in any medium. Mom hugged me goodbye, whispering, I'm so proud of who you've become in both worlds. Evening reflection. As the sun set, casting long shadows through the gallery windows, while our R installations painted the walls with dancing light, I looked at these people, my chosen family, my reformed adversaries, my supporters. We'd turned revenge into renaissance, pain into purpose. Maya raised her ever-present coffee cup. To second chances. Jason added, to building something better. Sarah said, to authentic art. I thought about Dad in his cell, still believing in control and manipulation, still not understanding that true strength comes from empowering others, not suppressing them. To all of it, I said, and to the kids who never have to fight the system like we did. Final thoughts, because sometimes the best revenge isn't just proving someone wrong. I watched a group of young artists from Jason's program explore our latest R installation, their faces lit with wonder. It's creating something so right that it heals not just you, but everyone around you. Sarah adjusted the projection mapping on her latest piece. That's a victory worth fighting for. Maya checked our engagement metrics one last time. In both physical and digital spaces. In every space, I agreed, watching the future of art unfold before us in perfect hybrid harmony.